Part 46. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 451. Master, do you have any way to let the second brother suppress Nolan and regain control of his body? Now that Wenheng is suppressed by Nolan, he can only exist in his consciousness. It is obviously his own body, but he cannot control it and is occupied by an alien soul. Such a thing is indeed incredible. Hua Shifang pinched his eyebrows and said slowly, "It's not that easy." His research on spiritual aspects is not as thorough as his research on traditional Chinese medicine. Nan Yan nodded in understanding and said softly, "There will always be a way. At least now that the person has been brought back, Nolan will no longer use the second brother's body to do bad things. You should take good care of your injuries first, and don't worry about other things for the time being." Hua Shifang frowned slightly. "You also know how important your hands are. Take good care of yourself and don't leave sequelae." Nan Yan, "I know. If you want to have a good rest, I won't disturb you." "Okay." Not long after Hua Shifang left, Marcus came. He looked at Nan Yan with a worried look. Seeing this, Nan Yan patted his head with her uninjured hand and said softly, "It's okay, don't worry." Marcus' eyes were slightly red, and he opened her hand with some annoyance. "You always say it's okay. No matter how badly you were injured before, you always said it's okay every time you came back. So what is a big deal for you? She is a human, not a god. Why doesn't she know how to take care of herself? Life and death are the big things." Nan Yan smiled. "Besides, nothing else matters to me. But this is relative to her own life. If someone she cares about is injured, she can't tolerate it." Marcus stared at her, seeing that she still looked like she didn't care at all, and finally could only sigh a few times, sit beside her with a stern face, and peel an apple for her. After peeling the apple, he cut it into small pieces and put it in front of her. "Eat some fruit. She can't take care of herself, so he will take care of her." Nan Yan picked up the apple with a fruit fork and ate some, then raised her eyebrows and asked, "Where are Qin Lu and Li Yuan?" She woke up and hadn't seen Qin Lu yet. This is not normal. If it was normal, Qin Lu would be here to watch her wake up. And Li Yuan? They went to the 7 Deadly Sins headquarters again. Such a cancer, naturally, cannot be allowed to exist. "Oh." Nan Yan put down the fork in her hand. "Go get the notebook that Li Yuan used before." Marcus guessed what she wanted to do, and said in a burst of words, "Sister, your hand is injured now, don't make trouble." Nan Yan said lightly, "Don't you still have one hand? It's not that you can't use it at all." Marcus. Okay, he was speechless. There was no way, Marcus couldn't beat Nan Yan, so he could only take the notebook and put it in front of her. "Be careful, or you tell me how to do it, and I will control it for you." Tisk. Nan Yan raised her eyebrows and chuckled, "Then I'll do it myself. I have one hand, but I'm better than you, a computer idiot." Marcus has no talent in computers. She taught him for a long time at the beginning, but found that he still knew nothing, pure white, so she gave up. Marcus was a little shocked. But he knew what she said was true. He stood aside with a straight face and expressionless face. He wanted to monitor her to prevent her from using her injured hand again because of habit. Nan Yan used one hand to type quickly on the keyboard. Although it was not as fast as when she controlled it with 2 hands, one hand was still so fast that only after images were left. Qin Lu and Li Yuan wanted to take advantage of the opportunity when Nolan was captured and the 7 Deadly Sins were leaderless to completely destroy this evil organization. The entrance door had been forcibly blown open at this time, and Chapman and his men were still resisting. However, this time, Qin Lu directly brought a pair of special forces equipped with precision equipment and the latest weapons. Once they entered the base, they were like wolves entering a flock of sheep, killing them without resistance. Most of the security personnel in the base were genetically modified people with enhanced genes, but no matter how strong their bodies were and how fast they were still mortals and had no ability to resist ammunition. Chapman was captured alive. The remaining people, knowing that Nolan had been captured and they were leaderless, lost the will to resist and chose to surrender. Nan Yan was relieved after seeing through the surveillance that they had solved the 7 deadly sins without danger. She turned off the computer and fell asleep again. Hashtag. After 3 days of nursing, the wound on the wrist finally began to heal. Nan Yan also slept for almost 3 days, and her exhausted body finally seemed to be alive, with energy and vitality. On the 4th day, Nan Yan went to the laboratory to see Shen Junqing and Bai Chen. The two of them were still sleeping quietly on the laboratory table, relying on external medical equipment. Their skin turned pale after not seeing the sun for a long time. And they had been using nutrient solution to maintain their lives, which made them lose a lot of weight. Standing beside them for a long time in silence and guilt, Nan Yan whispered, "Third brother, Bai Chen, wait for me for a while, I will definitely let you wake up." Coming out of the laboratory, she raised her head and forced back the tears in her eyes. Marcus was waiting for her outside, but when he saw her like this, he didn't go over immediately. After giving her some time to calm down, he sighed and walked forward. "Yan Yan, that Nolan wants to see you." Nan Yan actually had a mentality of avoiding Nolan. His morbid and crazy ideas made her physically disgusted. But thinking that Wen Hung and he would rise and fall together, she decided to meet him. Nolan was locked in a room with no windows on all sides, only a door. He still had the poison Nan Yan had given him in his body. But after Hua Shifang saw him last time, for some reason, he helped him to remove part of the drug effect. He can now stand up with the help of something, and his ability to live can basically take care of himself. However, if he wants to escape from here, it is also a fantasy. "You want to see me?" Nan Yan looked at Nolan, who seemed to have been abused for several months in just 4 days, and looked at Marcus beside him suspiciously. Marcus hurriedly explained, "I didn't abuse him. If it weren't for the fact that Nolan was now using the body of Nan Yan's second brother, he really wanted to abuse him. Later, he knew that Wen Hung was still in his body, so he gave up the idea. That is, although he didn't abuse him, he didn't give him food. During these 4 days, Nolan was starving except for drinking water. Nan Yan, if you don't want me to take your second brother to death, then remove the poison in my body and let me go." Nolan stared at Nan Yan with a sinister and resentful look. After 4 days of imprisonment, his already sick spirit became even sicker. He regretted it now, and shouldn't have been soft on Nan Yan. This regretful emotion almost drove him crazy. No, he was a madman, but he was stimulated to be more crazy. Nan Yan sneered and said casually, "Dear, I suggest you sleep and dream." Puff. Marcus was choked by his own saliva. What she said was really infuriating. "Aren't you afraid that I will kill him? If you kill him, you will die. But from what I know about you, you definitely don't want to die." Nan Yan looked at him coldly, "If you want to see me just to say these useless words, then I'm leaving." "You dare," Nolan shouted sharply, "don't think that I really don't dare to kill him. I am imprisoned here by you now, which is no different from being dead. Nan Yan, you have betrayed my feelings for you and hurt me to this point. I want to avenge you. If I die, you will be the murderer who killed your second senior brother, and you will always bear the guilt for him." Nolan looked crazy, looking at Nan Yan gloomily, wanting to use this bargaining chip to exchange for freedom. He had had enough of this kind of imprisonment. He suddenly grinned, "You should not know that after I kill him, as soon as the signs of life in this body disappear, I will transfer to other bodies. Your second senior brother is really dead, but I can still be reborn. Next time, who do you think I will choose as the object of rebirth?" Nan Yan's expression was slightly solemn. Can he still freely transfer to other people's bodies? She suspected that Nolan said this on purpose in order to get freedom. But what if it was true? Now he was using the body of the second senior brother. Although he suppressed the consciousness of the second senior brother and controlled this body, he was also bound to this body and could not freely transfer his soul. Only when the current body died could he transfer again. She didn't quite believe it, but she couldn't use the life of the second senior brother to test it. Marcus reminded her, "Sister, don't believe him, he is deceiving you to let him go." Nolan restrained his emotions and sneered femininely, "Believe it or not, it's all up to you, but you'd better not regret it when the time comes. This doesn't cause any loss to me, it just takes some time to find another body. Next time, I will still choose someone around you, but this time I will never reveal my identity, step by step, let you become my possession." Marcus was stunned. Is this man telling the truth? He turned his head to look at Nan Yan, wanting to ask her if there was such a possibility. But this was also the first time Nan Yan encountered this. She couldn't afford the gamble. "I can let you go." After thinking for a while, Nan Yan made a decision, "but in exchange, you have to release my second brother and let him reunite with us for a few days." "Okay." Nolan agreed very readily, "It just so happens that I feel like vomiting with this weak body now, so it's better for him to bear this pain." "How many days do you want?" Nan Yan, 7 days. Nolan, "No, too many, 3 days at most." Nan Yan, 3 days is too few, 6 days. Nolan, 4 days, at most. Nan Yan, "Let's take a step back, 5 days." Nolan, "Deal." Marcus: "Why does he feel like he is bargaining in the vegetable market?" After agreeing to Nolan's request, Nan Yan told Marcus the prescription and asked him to prepare the antidote. She and Nolan were the only ones left in the room. Nan Yan sat opposite him, supporting her head with her uninjured hand, with a cold and calm expression. Nolan was gloomy, and the look in his eyes when he looked at her was full of ambiguous dark light. She suddenly asked, "Why can you move your body freely?" "Why should I tell you?" Nolan sneered. "Do you think I'm stupid enough to tell you my biggest secret?" "Oh." After Nan Yan was sure that she couldn't ask, she lost interest. She was too lazy to waste time with him and stood up to leave. "Don't leave." Nolan stopped her. "I've been thinking about you for 4 days, stay with me." "Het." Nan Yan left a cold sneer, without turning her head, and walked out of the room. Wen Hung saw the scene and mocked him in his mind. "Tisk, pitiful, the junior sister doesn't have any good feelings for you." Nolan sneered, changed the humble and fragile way he tried to keep Nan Yan before, and said calmly, "Why rush, sooner or later she will be mine." Wen Hung was alert. "What are you planning again?" Nolan said gloomily, "Wen Hung, don't be hypocritical, you also want to get her, don't you? If I get her, it's equivalent to you getting her too. You, a coward who wins by lying, should have some self-knowledge. I don't expect you to help me, just don't drag me down." He has gradually made Wen Hung begin to accept him. After he completely accepts him, his current body will no longer reject him. Only in this way can he fully exert all his strength before rebirth. For this reason, he doesn't mind winning with Wen Hung. Wen Hung's sarcastic voice disappeared. After a long while, he heard him say again, "Don't hurt her, and the people I care about. I will listen to you for everything else." Nolan grinned. He knew that human nature is the most vulnerable to the test. The original Wen Hung had no desires, so he was indestructible. But now he has taken care of Nan Yan and has desires in his heart, so he exposed his weaknesses. "Nolan, I can't hurt them, but they hurt me wantonly. This is unfair." Wen Hung said in a deep voice, "No, they won't hurt you too much for my sake. This is my bottom line. If you don't agree, I won't cooperate with you. Nolan, well, okay. When his bottom line is revealed, he has the opportunity to break all his bottom lines. At that time, Wen Hong will become his real subordinate, no longer an independent individual. After Marcus prepared the antidote, he sent it over. After entering the door, seeing that Nan Yan was gone, he simply threw the antidote to him, and closed the door and left without watching him eat. He went to find Nan Yan. Nan Yan was with Hua Shifang. She told Hua Shifang about her conversation with Nolan. After she finished speaking, she looked a little dazed, and said softly, "Master, I don't know if this is the right thing to do. Only by controlling Nolan can the resurgence of the 7 deadly sins be prevented. If you let him go, it may not take long for the 7 deadly sins to come back again. What I did is tantamount to letting the tiger go back to the mountain." But, in order to protect the second brother, she seemed to have no other choice. "Of course it's correct." Hua Shifang gave her a positive answer, "Don't let your imagination run wild. You've done a good job. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Now that Qin Lu and Li Yuan have already taken over the headquarters and all bases of the 7 deadly sins, it won't be that easy for him to revive even if he wants to." Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 452. Nanyan's condition adjusted quickly. By the time Qin Lu came back, she had returned to normal. Qin Lu and Li Yuan took advantage of Nolan's arrest this time and destroyed all the strongholds in Country M. Following the information they found from the headquarters, they also destroyed the other 2 backup headquarters that were about to be activated. After a few days of busy work, I was a bit dusty. However, Qin Lu went to see Nan Yan as soon as possible after returning. Nan Yan is in the laboratory. The injury on her wrist has not healed yet, so Hua Shifang did not allow her to do anything. Standing aside was Nolan. "You shouldn't call him Nolan. Wen Hong is in control of the body now." Nolan fulfilled his promise and let Wen Hong control his body for 5 days. Wen Hong wanted Hua Shifang and Nan Yan to maintain their feelings for him and prevent them from alienating him and neglecting him because Nolan used his body to do bad things. So after taking control of the body, knowing that Nan Yan was trying every means to save Shen Junqing and Bai Chen, he got half of the synthetic drugs related to the genetic medicine injected into their bodies from Nolan, and offered them his sincerity. However, because Nolan only gave half of it, it is not that easy to find a real antidote. When Qin Lu arrived, Hua Shifang was silent and poured the failed antidote into a special processing vessel. Nan Yan pursed her lips and said comfortingly, "Master, there is insufficient information and it is not easy to research it." "Don't worry. Hua Shifang. He's really not that glass-hearted." She also had to let her little disciple comfort her. Hua Shifang calmly put down the things in his hands and wiped his hands with the disinfectant wipes handed over by Wen Hong. "Well, this is not a matter of urgency. Take your time." He looked at Qin Lu, who was standing at the door, and said, "You're back." Qin Lu was worried that his sudden approach would disturb their experiments, so he consciously stood at the door and waited. When he heard Hua Shifang calling him, he walked over. "Mr. Hua," Qin Lu called out respectfully, and then looked at Nan Yan with concern. "Yan Yan, are your hands feeling better?" Nan Yan nodded obediently. "With Master here, it's actually nothing serious. It's been a week now, and the wound looks a little hideous on the outside, but it's actually healing on the inside. Moreover, in order to prevent any sequelae on her hands, the Master used acupuncture to stimulate her nerves every day." Hua Shifang looked at the atmosphere between the 2 young lovers, and considering that Qin Lu hadn't seen Nan Yan for a week, he said, "It's time to change the dressing on Yan Yan's hand. You should accompany her to find Marcus." "Good." Qin Lu nodded, and then naturally took Nan Yan's uninjured hand. After several days of failure, Mr. Hua was actually quite tired. When he saw Nan Yan and Qin Lu leaving, he frowned, called Wen Hong, and left the laboratory. Qin Lu squeezed Nan Yan's little hand, and the warmth in his palm made him feel his heart softening. In the past few days, he had killed too many people and was surrounded by an aura of hostility. Even the people around him did not dare to approach him. In order not to scare Nan Yan, he tried his best to restrain himself. However, Nan Yan could still feel the chill that was deliberately suppressed on him. Of course, it's still unrealistic to scare her to this extent. She curved her lips, turned her head and smiled softly, "Brother." Qin Lu also spoke at this moment, "Yan Yan. You speak first. You speak first." The two spoke at the same time again. Then there was a period of silence. Qin Lu reached out his hand to rub her head lovingly, smiled slightly, and said, "You go ahead and say it first." "Actually, it's nothing. I want to ask you about the 7 deadly sins." Qin Lu, basically eliminated. That's good. Nan Yan's uneasiness became a little lighter. After all, she promised Nolan to let him go. Now that the 7 deadly sins are gone, even if he reorganizes it, it will take time. During this time, she would think of a way to drive him out of the second senior brother's body. "Brother, what do you want to say to me?" Qin Lu smiled warmly, "It's nothing, I just want to call you." He misses her very much. Although he hadn't seen her for just a week, he couldn't control the longing in his heart. The first time he saw her, he wanted to hold her in his arms. "Is it really okay?" Nan Yan looked at him suspiciously, her beautiful eyes staring straight at him. Why did she feel that he had something to say to her after calling her? Qin Lu looked into her eyes silently, then suddenly lowered his head and leaned close to her ear, so teased, "Missing you, does that count?" Nan Yan. Calculate. After saying that, she gently hugged his waist. Qin Lu hugged her contentedly, lowered his head and kissed her on the top of her head, sighing slightly. "Little girl, she's still too young. Although I skipped a grade and went to college." He felt that he should not be too animalistic. At least, wait until she is 20. Ahem. Marcus, who happened to see the scene when he went out, turned around neatly, facing the door panel, with his hands still on the door, and reminded them awkwardly. They couldn't help themselves when they met again after a long separation, and he understood. "But can we go back to the room after making out? Do you have to show affection outside his office? Bullying him for being a single dog?" The two people who were hugging each other let go of each other and looked at Marcus calmly. Okay, he saw the two of them making out together, and he was the only one who was embarrassed. The problem is, these two big guys stared at him with calm eyes. He felt a lot of pressure, and he had the urge to run away and leave this place to them. His back was pressed against the door, his eyes were evasive and wandering, and he stammered, Is something wrong?" Qin Lu held Nan Yan's little arm and raised her injured hand, "Change the dressing." Oh. Marcus breathed a sigh of relief, "Come in and change." However, it seems that it was changed yesterday, but in fact it should be changed tomorrow. "But since you've come here, it won't be a big deal if you change it." Marcus didn't hesitate and quickly got the ointment for Nan Yan's wrist, and then untied the gauze wrapped around her wrist to reveal the wound inside. The wound is healing. It's just that the healing speed is much slower than normal injuries. The red scars were particularly obvious on her jade-like skin, just like burns, and they were ugly. Qin Lu frowned, his eyes filled with distress. However, Nan Yan didn't feel uncomfortable. She looked up and saw the distress in his eyes, licked her lips and explained, "It just looks a bit serious, but it doesn't actually hurt. After applying the medicine, the wound only feels refreshing and cool. Apart from the lack of effort, it really doesn't hurt at all. But when the master gave her acupuncture, it really hurt. Every time she received acupuncture, she would break out in a cold sweat and her face would turn pale from the pain. There was no way She needed to fully restore the function of her hand without leaving any sequelae, so she had to endure such acupuncture stimulation. Qin Lu concealed his emotions and gently rubbed her shoulders with his big hands. It will be fine. Whether it's a wound or a scar on it, it will get better. Nan Yan nodded non-committally. This is true. After refilling the medicine, Marcus packed everything and exited his office with a wink, giving the room to the two of them. He even closed the door thoughtfully. Look how sensible he is. Nan Yan and Qin Lu didn't think what he wanted, and they talked about business while no one was around. She also told Qin Lu that she wanted Nolan. Qin Lu said indifferently, "You can decide these things. Whatever she wants to do, he will support it." Hashtag. Originally, Nan Yan planned to stay with Marcus until the injury on her wrist was no longer serious before returning to China. But a phone call forced her to go back as soon as possible. Zhang Nai disappeared. Mr. N discovered that she was missing. In fact, she had been missing for 2 days. Because everyone is living with the Lu family recently, Zhang Nai lives in the servants' area in order not to cause trouble to them. Her requirements for food, clothing, housing, and transportation are not high, as long as she has enough food, clothing, and a place to sleep. Moreover, the servant area is also a separate room, so there is no inconvenience. Zhang Nai has a lovable personality and is well behaved and sensible. Everyone in the Lu family likes her. It was Aunt May, the servant who lived next door to her, who discovered her disappearance. Seeing that she had not come back for 2 days, she went to ask Mr. N if she had gone home. Mr. N told her that Zhang Nai was an orphan and grew up in an orphanage. He did find time to go back several times a month, but he had to tell him before going back each time. Because every time he would ask the driver to bring some supplies to the orphanage when he took her back. There was no way she was going to leave without saying a word. Only then did everyone realize that she was missing. Mr. N and Mr. Lu quickly sent people to look for him. There was news that Zhang Nai had returned from the orphanage, but Zhang Nai did not go back. And news came back from the school that she had not gone to school in the past 2 days. They tried various methods but could not find Zhang Nai's whereabouts. Finally, they had no choice but to contact Nan Yan. On the same day, they returned to China. As for Nolan, because time was up and Wenheng was deprived of control of his body again, he asked Nan Yan to fulfill the agreement and let him go. Due to Wenheng's existence, Nan Yan could only let him go. After Nolan left Merc, Nan Yan wanted someone to monitor him. But soon, traces of him were lost. He seemed to disappear out of thin air, leaving no trace at all. Li Yuan will use the ability of the dark domain to trace his whereabouts with all his strength. The most important thing now is to find Zhang Nai. When we returned to China, it was already evening, and it would be dark in another hour. They went directly to Lu's house. Mr. N and Mr. Lu were both anxious and were not even in the mood to eat. Seeing Nan Yan and the others coming back, Mr. N quickly grabbed her hand and said anxiously, "Yan Yan, Xiao Nai's whereabouts can't be found anywhere, could she?" In his excitement, he accidentally grabbed Nan Yan's injured wrist. Qin Lu frowned and wanted to remind Mr. N, but Nan Yan secretly stopped him. She comforted her gently, "Grandpa, don't be nervous. I'll check." In order to prevent Mr. N from worrying when he saw her injured, she put a sports wristband on the bandaged gauze to cover up her injury. Mr. N nodded, "Okay, let's check first. Yan Yan, Xiao Nai's affairs will be left to you." Mr. Lu was also worried. Zhang Nai is now Mr. Lu's apprentice. Her talent in chess skills surprised Mr. Lu. She failed to teach Nan Yan art, but she got a young apprentice who was very suitable to his liking. Mr. Lu now treasures Zhang Nai. On the first day of school for Zhang Nai High School, Mr. Lu went to see him off. Mr. N's health had not recovered at that time, otherwise he would have gone along. Nan Yan comforted the two elders and took out his notebook. Just as she was about to take action, Qin Lu took her notebook and said, "It's not advisable to move your hands violently." "I'll do it." Controlling a computer requires sensitivity and high demands on hand nerves. Although Nan Yan can move his hands, he can't control the computer quickly for a long time. Only then did Mr. N realize that Nan Yan was wearing a wristband, and he quickly asked, "Yan Yan, what's wrong with your hand?" Nan Yan shook her head and said, "It's nothing. I accidentally twisted it. Master has already fixed my bones. It will only take a few days." Mr. N's expression suddenly became tense. "If your hand is injured, take good care of it and don't move it. Your hand is so precious, you must take good care of it." Mr. Lu quickly took off Mr. N's hand that was still on Nan Yan's wrist. "Mr. N, you just squeezed Yan Yan's wrist, didn't you? Yan Yan, does your wrist hurt?" Only then did Mr. N realize that he had just grabbed her wrist quite hard, as if he was anxious. Immediately I started to blame myself. "Yan Yan." Nan Yan interrupted him and said seriously, "Okay, it's just a minor injury. It'll be fine in 2 days. Don't worry. Besides, with my master here, even if my hand is broken, he can reattach it to me in minutes." "Mr. Lu." "Mr. N. It's better to say goodbye." Seeing that the two old men had finally calmed down, Nan Yan's eyes fell on Qin Lu. She always knew that Qin Lu's computer skills were not bad. But this was the first time I saw him operating a computer with my own eyes. Those noble white hands were jumping so fast on the keyboard as if they were playing the piano, leaving an after-image. Nan Yan looked at his hand speed thoughtfully. After her hand heals, do you want to compare it with him? 10 minutes later, Qin Lu hit the enter key, tilted his head and said to Nan Yan, "This is the surveillance video before Zhang Nai disappeared." Nan Yan leaned over and tapped the space bar to start the video. And she was just like this, bent over, almost leaning against his head, watching the picture on the screen. In the picture, Zhang Nai came out of school and didn't go far before he was dragged to the car by the arm stretched out from the open door of an unlicensed van. Then the door closed tightly and the van drove away quickly. The whole process takes no more than 10 seconds. It was so fast that even the people around him didn't notice anything unusual. They didn't even know that such a kidnapping was taking place right under their noses. Mr. N frowned. "Xiao Nai was kidnapped, what do they want to do?" Mr. Lu said solemnly, "No one has contacted us in the past 2 days. Could it be that the other party kidnapped Xiao Nai not for money? If it's not for money, then it can only be." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 453. If it's not for money, then it can only be for her person. However, how could Zhang Nai, a little girl, offend these people and make them attack her? Only monitoring the kidnapped person is not enough. The identity of the other person cannot be determined, and there is no way to rescue him. The other party is a professional criminal gang, and Zhang Nai is not the first girl to go missing. In the past week, several people have disappeared, and it should all be caused by a group of them. Qin Lu's words made Mr. N and Mr. Lu even more nervous. In recent years, kidnappings of women and children have occurred frequently in our country, but most of them are in remote mountain villages and small cities. Jincheng is a first-tier city. How can these people be so rampant? Do you want to call the police? Let the police help you find him. The two elders were stunned, and it was only now that they remembered that they had not called the police. Nan Yan said solemnly, "Well, call the police. This kind of criminal gang must be registered in the police station. Let's see if the police have any clues." The police were called, and the police sent someone to investigate the situation. Not long after, a police car drove to Lu's house. Captain Fan, Nan Yan looked at Fan Heping, who came out of the police car with some surprise. Why are you here? Fan Heping belongs to the military region. Could it be that the military has been mobilized for this kind of case? It seemed the situation was more serious than she thought. Fan Heping nodded to her, then looked at Qin Lu and hummed, "The brat is here, so of course I have to come in person." Qin Lu said calmly, "Captain Fan, I haven't provoked you during this time, have I?" Fan Heping slapped him on the shoulder and said in a rough voice, "Hurry back to the station with me. I need your help in this kidnapping case." Fan Heping and Qin Lu have known each other for a long time and naturally know his abilities. This kidnapping case has only occurred for a week, and already girls and children have gone missing. The situation is very serious. Especially for the missing people, it is not clear whether they are alive or dead. Death orders have been issued from above, and this kidnapping case must be detected as soon as possible and the kidnapped people must be rescued. Fan Heping was a special force transferred to assist the local police and was the head of the action team. He was under the greatest pressure. He couldn't even sleep these days and was so busy. He applied to the superiors for help from professionals, but after the professionals came, they were unable to find out the whereabouts of the kidnappers. So now that Fan Heping sees Qin Lu, it's like seeing a savior. He must abduct him back no matter what method he uses. Qin Lu nodded without hesitation, "Okay." Nan Yan said coldly, "I'll go too." Fan Heping squinted at her with a particularly solemn expression, "Girl, this is a very dangerous thing. Are you sure you want to participate?" He knew that Nan Yan had good marksmanship and was a good prospect as a sharpshooter. And at first he had the idea of abducting her into the military zone. But she refused. Perhaps, could he take this opportunity to get her over? "I'm sure," Nan Yan said firmly, "my sister is also among the kidnapped people. I want to rescue her." Mr. An and Mr. Lu didn't want Nan Yan to take risks, but Hua Shifang said, "Let Yan Yan go. With her here, she will be of great help in solving this case." Hua Shifang knows his little disciple's ability. This is a major life-saving matter. As long as you have the ability, then you can contribute. Nan Yan, "Well, I want to do my part." Qin Lu held her hand tightly and promised several elderly people, "Grandpa, Grandpa, Hua Lao, don't worry, I will take good care of Yan Yan." Mr. An looked at the people who had made their decisions long ago and couldn't say anything else. He could only say, "Alu, then I will leave Yan Yan to you. Protect her." Time could not withstand the delay, so Qin Lu and Nan Yan followed Fan Heping to the police station. On the way, Fan Heping told the two of them what he knew about the kidnapping case, and the rest was for them to investigate. So, until now, there is no information about the kidnapping gang except for the girls and children who were kidnapped. Nan Yan was a little surprised. How could the police have so few clues? After all, it has been 7 full days. You should have seen the videos of the kidnappers. The whole process did not take more than 10 seconds. Except for a few hands, no limbs were exposed, so it is impossible to draw a picture. Fan Heping's face was full of helplessness. The van the other party drove during the kidnapping was stolen from the second-hand market. Every time he committed a crime, he would change a car. However, there was no news of any missing vehicles in the second-hand car market, and there was no trace of any missing vehicles in the second-hand car market. Nothing unusual. This is a wave of professional and well-planned criminal groups with a strong purpose and extremely high success rate. Dozens of kidnappings, not a single one went wrong. Fan Heping waved his hands and sighed, "We'll talk about it later in the bureau." Hashtag. At the same time, in a haunted house in an abandoned horror theme park, Zhang Nai sat among a group of girls, her little face pale. It has been 2 days and 2 nights since she was caught here. After those people threw them here, they only gave them one meal every day and kept them here. In addition to the crying of the girls, she also heard the crying of many children. Judging from the volume, it should be not far from them. What is the purpose of these people? Zhang Nai pursed her lips and gritted her teeth, thinking about how to save herself. See if you can contact the outside world. Zhang Nai is no longer the timid girl she used to be. After being rescued by Nan Yan, her personality has changed a lot. If she had encountered such a thing before, she would not dare to think of anything except crying. However, her mobile phone was taken away by them after she was caught. Unless she could run outside and use their mobile phone to send a message to her sister. According to her observations in the past 2 days, the kidnappers would not leave too many people to guard them. At most, they would leave 2, and the rest would leave. Every day when they come back, they will bring back new girls. Why are they so rampant and eager to kidnap so many girls and children? Zhang Nai did not think about these things that she could not figure out for the time being. She was ready to find a way to get out, steal the guard's mobile phone, and send a message for help to her sister. After making up her mind, Zhang Nai looked around, selected a few girls who were still calm and did not cry all the time, and called them together. Zhang Nai asked in a low voice, "Do you want to escape?" The girls were stunned and nodded in unison, "Of course." Then a girl with a ponytail asked softly, "What can you do? Can we escape? We have been arrested here for 7 days at most, but no one has come to find us. It is estimated that the police will not be able to find us in a short time. As time goes by, our safety will be more difficult to guarantee. We will be smuggled abroad and sold to various illegal places, and we will never come back in the next life. If we don't want to die, we must save ourselves and find a way to tell people outside that we are here." Several girls understood Zhang Nai's words, so when she said this, several girls also had an impulse. "What should we do? They have guns in their hands, can we? If we fail, will they kill us?" Several girls lowered their voices and asked Zhang Nai in a low voice. Because Zhang Nai was the first person to speak, they regarded her as the backbone. Zhang Nai's brain raced, and suddenly she had an idea. "So, tomorrow when their main force leaves and only 2 are left to guard us, we'll find a way to make something happen and call them in. I'll sneak out, find a cell phone, and spread the news to the outside." "What to do?" Zhang Nai: "So, tomorrow you guys fight, make a bigger fight, and it's best to get everyone to make a fight and force them in." "Okay. We'll all listen to you." They didn't tell everyone about this plan. After all, not everyone has enough psychological endurance. If someone is too timid and lets the kidnappers who are guarding them know their intentions, then it's over. Well, let's wait until tomorrow daytime. Hashtag. The next day, Nan Yan and Qin Lu were busy in the information room of the police station all night. Fan Heping also stayed up all night. After staying up all night for several days in a row, his eyes were full of bloodshot, and his chin was covered with blue stubble, but his red eyes made him look more majestic. "How is it? Have you found out?" Fan Heping stood up and asked when he saw the 2 people coming out of the information room. Qin Lu first took a cup of warm water and handed it to Nan Yan before saying, "We have roughly determined the other party's origin." Fan Heping asked in a deep voice, "Who are they?" "That group of people came from Country Y, a transnational organization that smuggles people and sells human organs." Qin Lu looked at Fan Heping. "Captain Fan, have you heard of the Black Owl Gang?" Black Owl, Fan Heping's upright and majestic face was a little gloomy. "The notorious multinational criminal group." "Yes. Can you determine their current location?" "The most important thing now is to rescue the kidnapped people first. They are the most important. Only by ensuring their safety can they deal with those criminals without scruples." Qin Lu: "Based on the information we have now, we can't lock it yet, but we can locate it in a general area." Nan Yan said, "Captain Fan, in order to determine whether the kidnapped people are safe, And to facilitate internal and external cooperation, I plan to try to lure them into the trap and kidnap me. This is the fastest way to determine their exact location. No, it's too dangerous, I can't let you take this risk. Fan Heping refused directly. Although Qin Lu didn't say anything, it can be seen from his actions that he didn't want her to put herself in danger. After all, she still had an injury on her wrist, which affected part of her force. But this method is okay, I'll let our special police female soldiers be the bait. The target range of one person is too small, and it is uncertain how long it will take to lure those people into the trap. So, Fan Heping will decide to send more people and strive to rescue the kidnapped people in the shortest time. Nan Yan looked straight at him and said in a cold voice, "It is undeniable that the female soldiers under Captain Fan are all excellent, but I am the most suitable candidate. I am confident and capable of ensuring my own safety and protecting the personal safety of the kidnapped people." Fan Heping didn't understand Nan Yan's words. Where did she get such confidence? He didn't know much about Nan Yan. Last time he knew that she was a sharpshooter, he got to know her. But the information he got at that time was actually very lagging. He only knew that she was a good shooter and a good student. He didn't know that she also had medical skills and was a hacker. Captain Fan, in order to improve efficiency and allow our people to penetrate into their interior as soon as possible, I suggest that several girls act at the same time. In order to ensure their safety, I will send people to protect them secretly. Qin Lu didn't want to steal Fan Heping's job, nor did he feel that his soldiers were not capable enough. It's just that they specialize in the art, and the people under him are more suitable for concealment and tracking, and have an advantage over others. Fan Heping was moved by Qin Lu's words, and then looked at Nan Yan. "Are you really sure you want to go? No matter how powerful she is still just a 19-year-old girl." Nan Yan nodded simply, "I want to participate." "Okay, I'm going to apply for permission for this operation," Fan Heping said seriously before calling his superiors. 2 hours later, Fan Heping came back with news that his superiors had approved their plan. Fan Heping then selected a few female soldiers who looked younger and harmless from the Women's Special Operations Team and told them the contents of the operation. When the female soldiers heard that the mission was to find the kidnapped girls and children, they had no complaints and no fear of danger. They shouted in unison, "Captain Fan, don't worry, we will do our best to complete the mission. This mission is different from the past. The first thing you have to do is protect the ordinary people who were kidnapped. The second thing is to protect yourselves. There is no need for you to have a head-on conflict with the kidnappers. Do you remember this clearly? Remember clearly. Okay, now you put on both the locator and the contact device." Fan Heping brought a bunch of beautiful accessories to the girls. There are rings, bracelets, watches, earrings, necklaces, etc. This is the latest positioning liaison device developed by Junlin, which was kindly funded by Qin Lu. The appearance is just like ordinary decorations, to the extent that they look fake and real. And in addition to these jewelry-like contacts, there are also button-style ones, which are even more inconspicuous. In order to prevent the jewelry they wore from being snatched away, several girls chose the most inconspicuous button style with tacit understanding. After Fan Heping and the others made their selections, they naturally put away the remaining positioning communicators, not intending to return them to Qin Lu. This kind of thing has a lot of uses for their military region. Anyway, Qin Lu can take out so much at will. Obviously he has a lot of such things. It should be no problem to give him some. This is not what Nanyan uses. Those that Qin Lu gave to Fan Heping were all basic versions, which were completely sufficient for this operation, and he really never thought about getting them back. If you give it to him, you give it. The high technology developed by Junlin was willing to be shared with the country for free. What Nanyan uses is a higher level smart series. Not only can it send her real-time location, but it can also scan a 3D map of her geographical location and send it to his receiver. It would allow him to determine her specific location in a shorter period of time. Qin Lu carefully helped her pin the contact device to her clothes. The beautiful corsage shape was very low-key, but it was made of a piece of pure natural blue crystal. Even if you don't look at its actual value, just a piece of blue crystal is priceless. After pinning her up, Qin Lu held her in his arms and stared down at her. "Be careful, don't use your left hand. If the injury gets worse, I will never allow you to participate in anything dangerous in the future. You know." Nan Yan was surrounded by his aura and saw the concern in his eyes, so she responded obediently, "Oh. I will have people protect you secretly. If there is danger, you must exit this plan as soon as possible and protect yourself first." Actually, Nan Yan wanted to say that she didn't need protection from others, so let him send the people he planned to send to protect her to protect others. But halfway through his words, he was interrupted by Qin Lu. "Huh." Qin Lu lowered his head and looked at her. He could understand what she wanted to say without saying it. However, he understands that if his little girlfriend dares to say that he does not want to protect her, he will not allow her to participate in this plan. Nan Yan felt that the voiceover of his words changed and said, "I will protect myself, you don't have to worry." Qin Lu smiled lightly, "Okay." After they were all dressed up, Nanyan and the others went to places where there were many kidnappings according to the previous plan. I hope to attract the attention of the kidnappers and take action against them. Hashtag. At noon, the abandoned haunted house was still dark. The windows are all sealed, and only a little light shines through the cracks, so that the room doesn't look pitch black and nothing can be seen. The girls were still huddled together in fear. Those who still had the strength continued to cry. The girls who were tired from crying and whose throats were hoarse from crying sat on the ground numbly and fearfully, praying in their hearts that the police could find them as soon as possible and rescue them. Zhang Nai walked to the door carefully and put her ear against it. There were only 2 people outside, and they were watching videos on their mobile phones, so Zhang Nai could hear the sound coming from the mobile phones through the first floor door. She turned back and nodded to the girls who had discussed with her yesterday to work together to find a way to save themselves. The girls knew it was their turn to take action. You stepped on my foot, please apologize to me. It's so dark here, and I didn't mean to step on you. We've all fallen into this situation. Can you stop causing trouble? My mother taught me that if I do something wrong, I have to apologize to the other party. This is obviously your fault, you must apologize to me. I won't apologize, what can you do? I've had enough, I'm going crazy with this kind of life, let's die together. Ah, the 2 of them are fighting. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 454. The 2 girls who had the quarrel first turned a small conflict into a fight. At this time, other people were also inexplicably involved, and the quarrel between the 2 people turned into a large-scale fight. The man playing with his mobile phone outside heard the commotion inside and looked at each other. There was a look of what's going on in his eyes. Let's go in and take a look. This batch of goods will be sent away in 2 or 3 days, and it will be within the next 2 days, so we must not make any mistakes. So, the 2 guards put down their mobile phones and went to open the door. As soon as the door was opened, the light from outside shone in, allowing them to see the situation in the room. What's going on? The girls who are usually timid like chickens are actually fighting in a group at this time. The 2 guards stared at them, scratching and pulling each other's hair. After 3 seconds of silence, they suddenly said angrily, "Stop it. These girls are the goods to be sent to the sea. They were carefully selected by them when they were kidnapped. Some are innocent, some are sexy, some are plump, and some are skinny. But without exception, they are all beautiful girls. Whether they are delicate or beautiful, they will be stunning at first sight in the crowd. But now, because of the fight, their faces are more or less stained, which makes the two guards so angry that their scalps are numb. If there is a mistake in this batch of goods, they will not be able to deliver the goods at that time. And the girls who have gone crazy did not stop even if they heard what they said. These days, they have been locked up in this dark place. Panic and fear are like snowballs, rolling up in their hearts. Many people are on the verge of collapse. At the beginning of this fight, they were all inexplicably involved, but when they started fighting, they found that fighting had become a way to release the fear that almost suffocated them. They didn't want to stop. The two guards saw that they didn't listen to them at all, so they pulled out their guns and fired a shot at the ceiling above their heads. Bang! The huge gunshot frightened the girls. They screamed and squatted on the ground. "I told you to stop, did you hear me?" Guard A, who fired the gun, stared at them with a sullen face and pointed the gun at them. The girls were so scared that they wanted to retreat in a panic. Their screams were tightly covered in their mouths, and their eyes with tears looked at the two of them in fear. Guard B asked fiercely, "Why are you fighting?" "No. I don't know." "We don't dare." Don't kill me." "Woo woo woo. Mom, I want to go home." The frightened girls all cried again at this moment. The girls who had discussed with Zhang Nai cried even louder at this time. They wanted to buy time and provide opportunities for Zhang Nai. Just when Guard A and Guard B came in, Zhang Nai stood behind the door. And Guard A and Guard B's sights were all attracted by the girls' group fight. She took this opportunity to quietly run out. After running out, she found the mobile phone on the table, which was still playing the video. Without thinking, she quickly picked up the phone. After returning to the desktop directly, she turned on the dialing mode and called Nan Yan. While listening to the beep sound coming from the phone, she turned back to look at the direction of the door in panic. Zhang Nai's heart reached the fastest speed in her life at this moment, and it almost jumped out of her throat. Her little face was so tense that she kept saying in her heart, "Sister, answer it quickly. Answer it quickly." But things went against her wishes. The phone rang for more than 10 seconds, but no one answered it. Zhang Nai didn't dare to delay any more time. She was afraid that Nan Yan was busy or her phone was not with her, so she hung up the phone and sent a short message to Nan Yan with her phone, "Sister, haunted house." Then, she quickly deleted the call records and text messages, put the phone back to the original video playback mode, and put it back in place. Just when she wanted to return to the haunted house without anyone noticing, footsteps came from behind her. "They are back." Zhang Nai's face turned pale, she looked at her phone, then turned around and ran towards the door. "Oh, there is a girl who wants to die and wants to escape." Garda saw Zhang Nai running out, but he didn't rush to chase her, and said jokingly. Zhang Nai felt a chill on her back when she heard his words. She knew that if she ran again, she would end up in a terrible situation after being caught by them, but she couldn't let them guess, so she sent a message to her sister using their mobile phones. So, Zhang Nai gritted her teeth and ran out desperately. And Guard A and Guard B followed her slowly. Like a cat playing with a mouse, they watched her escape in a panic. When she ran out of the room in the haunted house, she found that the door outside was locked. She ran to the door and tried to twist the door lock with both hands. But it was just a useless effort. "Little sister, why don't you run away? You are not big, but you are very brave." The two guards trapped Zhang Nai between them and the door, one on the left and one on the right. Two pairs of evil eyes swept back and forth over Zhang Nai. Zhang Nai is very beautiful, with a combination of the delicate and sweet looks of a girl next door, which makes people feel comfortable. Moreover, in the past 6 months, she has made great improvements in her diet. Her originally thin figure has grown a lot now, and she looks exquisite, showing her pure and lustful temptation to the fullest. Because of running and panic, her cheeks are flushed, and her clear eyes are a little tearful. Easily, the two have not been out for fun for several days for the mission. Those girls are to deliver the goods to the sea, and they are ordered not to move. But this girl wanted to run away by herself, and was caught by them, so she had to accept the punishment. Zhang Nai's scalp was numb from their malicious eyes. She bit her lips hard and begged them, "Let me go home, I want to go home, Wu, please, let me go. I am the only daughter in my family. They can't live without me. I will repay you." "Haha, let you go? That's not possible, but little sister, you cry so miserably, it's quite pitiful, let uncle take good care of you." Garda strode forward and directly carried Zhang Nai on his shoulders. He and Guard B looked at each other, and the evil eyes expressed their meaning. While the other large groups have not returned, the two of them can have a good time. Hashtag. It was more than 10 minutes later that Nan Yan saw the call from Zhang Nai and the text message she sent. Her mobile phone was in her school bag before. In order to lure the kidnappers into the trap, she deliberately wore a school uniform, carried a school bag, and walked around the school gate. Her phone was set to silent vibration, but she didn't notice the vibration because there were too many things in her school bag. When she took out her phone and saw the missed calls and the text message, she contacted Qin Lu directly and asked him to locate the phone number immediately. At the same time, an inexplicable uneasiness made Nan Yan a little irritable. They were in the haunted house. There are at least a dozen horror theme parks in Jinjinj, and there are 4 or 5 abandoned ones. It would take a lot of time to find them one by one, so Nan Yan waited for Qin Lu to find out the address and tell her. 10 minutes later, Qin Lu called and said in a deep voice, "Yan Yan, the location of the phone number has been locked. Captain Fan and I will go there now." Lan Yan squeezed the phone tightly, "Tell me the address, we will act separately and will not meet up with you." Okay. Qin Lu sent the address to Nan Yan. On his side, he notified Fan Heping, quickly formulated a rescue plan, and set off immediately. The address was sent to Nan Yan's mobile phone, which was more than 70 kilometers away from her current location. "If you want to go there, you need transportation." Nan Yan waved and hailed a taxi. Soon, an empty taxi pulled over. The driver lowered the window and asked with a smile, "Girl, where are you going?" "Master, I'm a little short of time. Can I discuss with you and let me drive?" The driver. He waved his hands quickly, "No, absolutely not, this is not in compliance with the regulations." Nan Yan leaned over and put her hand on the car window, "When you reach the destination, I will give you a reward of 10,000, and I will solve all the violations during the driving process for you." 10,000. The driver struggled in his eyes. This reward is not small. It can be equal to his usual 2 months' income. "Girl, can you really drive? If you are a novice, no matter how much you give me, I will not let you drive." He was worried that he would be greedy for temporary benefits and end up with a car crash and death. "Well, I've been racing for many years, and I'm absolutely sure of my driving skills. Master, do you think this deal is okay? If it's appropriate, you should give up your position quickly. If not, I'm going to stop a car." Nan Yan was very anxious, and her aura was a bit overwhelming. The driver thought for a few seconds, unbuckled his seat belt and got out of the car to give her a seat. He believed that Nan Yan would not joke with her life. He was reluctant to miss the 10,000 yuan. The driver moved to the co-pilot side, and Nan Yan got in the car directly. After buckling the seat belt, he stepped on the clutch and shifted gears. Then the taxi stopped on the side of the road, just like a bullet out of a gun. The speed was soared to a very terrifying speed from the beginning. The driver. He wanted to regret it. This girl was not driving a car, she was clearly flying a plane. His taxi gave him the illusion that he was flying too low. Girl, let's go slow, this is too exciting, my heart is not good." Nan Yan controlled the steering wheel and then threw a bottle of medicine over. Take one pill and close your eyes. The driver. What medicine did she give him? Can it be taken? There is not even a name for the medicine. It is so simple that there is only a small white bottle that is all white. Open the lid and there is a faint smell of Chinese herbal medicine inside. Although he was suspicious in his heart, he had already poured a pill in his hand and put it into his mouth tentatively. Generally, Chinese medicine is bitter. He wanted to try the taste and spit it out if it was too bitter. As a result, the pill melted in his mouth, and he didn't have time to react. The medicine had already been swallowed down his throat. The driver's face suddenly became bitter, secretly scolding himself for being curious. What if this medicine has any side effects? Wouldn't he be miserable? As a result, after waiting for a few minutes, he actually felt that the stuffiness in his heart was much relieved. At first he thought it was his illusion, but after a few minutes, he felt that even his breathing was much smoother, and the stuffy heart was really not uncomfortable. Could it be that this medicine is really so effective? He couldn't wait to ask, "Girl, is this medicine specifically for the heart?" Nan Yan replied indifferently, "The heart, liver, lungs, and 5 internal organs can basically be treated, not just the heart." After listening to her, the driver's eyes lit up. It happened that he had some problems in these parts. Then where can I buy this medicine? First hospital, go to the Chinese medicine hospital to find Dean Tao Qingming. It turned out to be Dean Tao's medicine. The driver was now determined and decided that no matter how much this medicine cost per bottle, he must buy it. This is really a good medicine that can make his body better and relieve his physical symptoms. Next, the driver was in no mood to talk. Because Nan Yan drove faster and faster, he took medicine, but he was still so nervous that he could hardly breathe. He could only hold the seat belt tightly and wait for her to reach the destination with his eyes closed. The car stopped outside the abandoned haunted house. After the driver got off the car, his legs were weak. Nan Yan transferred the 10,000 yuan reward to him. "Master, the car ran a red light and violated the traffic rules. I will help you solve it within 3 days at most. If it is not solved, you can come to me. This is my contact information." Nan Yan took a note, wrote down her mobile phone number, and put it in the driver's hand. "That's it, you can go." The driver wanted to wait here and take Nan Yan back later. After all, this place is quite desolate, and there is an abandoned haunted house, which looks gloomy no matter how you look at it. Will it be dangerous for a girl to come here? But after Nan Yan finished speaking, she walked towards the haunted house without waiting for his reply. He thought about it and sat in the car, intending to wait for her. Hashtag. Nan Yan came to the outside of the wall, threw her schoolbag in the bushes, found a relatively low place, took advantage of the momentum to run a few steps, and jumped directly up. She first walked around the abandoned horror theme park. There was no one around. It seemed that the other party was very confident, and there was no one. No one outside, that means everyone is inside? Nan Yan was not sure how many people the kidnappers had arranged here. For the safety of the kidnapped girls and children, she could not rush in with a big fanfare. Fortunately, she was injured in her left hand, and her right hand was fine, which would not affect most of her abilities. After quietly entering the haunted house, Nan Yan found that it was more lax than she thought. There was no one in the huge space. Only the weak crying of girls and children could be heard. After checking, Nan Yan confirmed that there were no outsiders and no surveillance here, and walked in the direction where the crying came from. Halfway through, a faint sound from another room made her figure suddenly stop. That was. Nan Yan quickened her pace and walked quickly towards that room. The door was not locked, she just pushed it open. The scene inside made the blood in her veins rush to her head instantly, and she went berserk in anger. Zhang Nai was bullied and beaten by 2 men, with wounds all over her body, and her clothes were torn. The moment she saw her, a light seemed to emerge in her eyes. She opened her mouth and weakly called sister. Nan Yan's eyes instantly turned red. She rushed forward, kicked guard A away, turned around and kicked guard B away with a roundhouse kick. The two men were kicked by her and hit the wall directly. They stayed for a few seconds before falling down weakly, covering their hearts and spitting blood. After kicking the two scum away, Nan Yan quickly took off her coat and wrapped it around Zhang Nai's trembling body. "I'm sorry, sister is late, Ziona, I'm sorry." Zhang Nai's pale face showed a faint smile. "Sister, I knew you would come to save me." Nan Yan whispered, "Ziona, don't be afraid, those people can't hurt you anymore." The smile on Zhang Nai's face could not be maintained and soon disappeared. Strong hatred burst out from her eyes. She trembled her lips and said hoarsely, "Sister, I will kill them." "Okay, sister will kill them right away." Nan Yan let go of Zhang Nai and was going to kill the two people. Before she got up, she was caught by Zhang Nai. She looked down at her. Zhang Nai's face was gloomy, and she said word by word, "I will come in person." Nan Yan took out the guards' guns from the clothes scattered on the ground, stuffed them in her hands, and asked, "Can you shoot? If not, sister will teach you." Zhang Nai nodded, and her thin body, wrapped in Nan Yan's coat, and bare feet, walked to guard A. Nan Yan followed her step by step. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 455. Nan Yan took the gun from her and put her hand on her shoulder. "Xiao Nai, sister will take you home, okay?" Zhang Nai nodded, then whispered, "Sister, I'll change clothes first." "Then change your clothes and call sister." Nan Yan didn't want to add pressure to Zhang Nai, and tried to follow her. But when she walked out of the room, she suddenly reacted the next second. She turned around and rushed inside again. Zhang Nai just picked up the switchblade that the man threw on the ground, and stabbed her heart without hesitation. Nan Yan rushed to her and reached out to grab the switchblade. The blade pierced her palm, and blood flowed down along the blade. Zhang Nai was frightened by Nan Yan's action. Seeing that her hand was bleeding, she hurriedly said, "Sister, let go." Nan Yan grabbed the blade and said sternly, "Xiao Nai, what are you doing? You want to commit suicide for those two scumbags. How can you do such a stupid thing?" Zhang Nai's face was pale, tears were pouring down, and she muttered to herself, "My reputation has been ruined." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Nan Yan snatched the switchblade from her hand, swung it back, and the blade was deeply stabbed into the wall like cutting tofu. She ignored the wound on her hand, stared at Zhang Nai with sharp and strong eyes, and said in a deep voice, "Xiao Nai, don't think like that. You are still clean, innocent, how can you be destroyed? On the contrary, you saved the people trapped here, you are the hero of all of them. Don't you want to think about the dean who raised you, and the brothers and sisters who grew up with you? Xiao Nai, are you willing to let your future be ruined by those two scumbags? You are so outstanding, and now you have become my grandfather's apprentice. In the future, you will definitely have a place in the art world. Don't you want to realize your dream?" Zhang Nai listened to Nan Yan's words blankly, and her dead and desperate eyes finally showed some changes. She can't die now. If she dies, what will happen to the dean and her brothers and sisters? She hasn't repaid them yet, she hasn't repaid her sister yet, she doesn't deserve to die. Zhang Nai relaxed her nerves and hugged Nan Yan and cried bitterly. Nan Yan patted her shoulder and coaxed her, "Just cry, vent all the pain in your heart. It's no big deal, Xiao Nai is very brave, you killed those two scumbags with your own hands, you avenged yourself, and washed away the humiliation on your body, you are a hero." Zhang Nai cried for 5 minutes before her emotions gradually calmed down. After calming down, she quickly grabbed Nan Yan's hand, "Sister, go save the others, the only kidnappers left here are those two scumbags, Wait until the afternoon, the other kidnappers will come back. Nan Yan said the police will be back soon, and the kidnapped people will be rescued. As for those kidnappers, none of them will be spared. Zhang Nai nodded and became depressed again. But then she tried to cheer herself up. Sister, I won't commit suicide again, you are right, I am upright and innocent, and there are so many people who need me to take care of, I can't abandon them. After no longer getting stuck in a dead end, she quickly calmed down. She reached out and touched her head, saying softly, go change your clothes, I'll take you home. Okay. Hashtag. Qin Lu and Fan Heping were also very fast. After finding out where Zhang Nai was, they quickly rushed here. When they arrived, they found that there was actually a taxi parked here. The driver, who was sitting in the car waiting for Nan Yan to come out, was reading an e-book on his mobile phone. When someone knocked on the car window, he thought it was Nan Yan coming out. As a result, when he looked up, he saw the faces of two strange men. What's going on? Could the girl have made an appointment with them to come here for adventure? And these two people look like decent people, not bad people. Thinking of this, he lowered the car window and said, are you here to find a little girl? Fan Heping did not answer the driver's question, but spoke majestically, this is not a place you should come to, please leave as soon as possible. Driver. Why shouldn't he come? Are they going to do something bad? But their appearance and temperament don't look like it. He wanted to argue with them, but seeing that the other party was not easy to mess with, he drove away in embarrassment. After Nan Yan rescued Zhang Nai, she contacted them and told them the situation in the haunted house. Knowing that there was no guard here, all the girls and children were fine, and there was no risk to their lives and health, Fan Heping finally felt relieved. After sending the driver away, Qin Lu and Fan Heping went in quickly. Seeing the girls and children waiting to leave the haunted house, Fan Heping arranged a car to temporarily transfer them to the police station. Since this was their temporary gathering point, they planned to set up a net here and planned to catch them all. After the rescue was almost done, Qin Lu said to Fan Heping, Captain Fan, you settle them first, I'll go see Yan Yan. Fan Heping, well, go. Nan Yan and Zhang Nai were still inside. Zhang Nai bandaged the wound on Nan Yan's palm again. She was too anxious at the time and held the blade tightly. The blade cut very deep and the blood could not be stopped at all. There was no medical kit here, so I could only tear off some clothes and use strips of cloth to temporarily apply pressure to stop the bleeding. Sister, you have to go to the hospital for your injuries. Let's go to the hospital. As soon as Qin Lu came outside, he heard the sentence and his nerves tensed up instantly. He pushed the door open with some anxiety and eagerness, and when he saw the wound on Nan Yan's palm, his face became a little gloomy. He strode over, carefully picked up her hand, looked at it up close, and frowned even more. Yan Yan, your wound needs to be treated, go to the hospital. Qin Lu's words were similar to Zhang Nai's. As a result, Nan Yan looked like nothing had happened to her. The wound continued to bleed, but she remained calm, it's just a small injury, nothing serious. It will heal soon when I go back and apply some medicine. Go to the hospital. Qin Lu didn't listen to what she said at all. Her hand was injured again, which made Qin Lu extremely self-blame and annoyed. He promised Mr. An, Mr. Lu and Hua Shifang to bring her back safely. Now that her hand was injured like this, how could he have the nerve to see them? What's more, he knows better than anyone how important a good hand is to Nan Yan. Originally, her left hand was injured and she could not move it freely. She had to rely on her right hand to do things. As a result, my right hand is also injured now. Qin Lu was in a bad mood. It's so bad that I have the urge to destroy everything. He didn't ask how Nan Yan's hand was injured or what happened after she came in. He just took her away without saying a word. After Fan Heping arranged the last girl in the car, Qin Lu and Nan Yan also returned to him. The dazzling bloodstains made him feel nervous. What's going on? Nan Yan glanced at the sullen Qin Lu and explained, I accidentally scratched my hand. It's just a skin injury. It's not a big problem. Qin Lu, Captain Fan, let Wu Yu cooperate with your actions here. I will go back with Yanyan first. Fan Heping said to Qin Lu, you can go back with Yanyan first. Let the police handle the rest. Hashtag Lu family. Nan Yan originally wanted to treat her wounds in the hospital before coming back, but Hua Shifang called and asked her to come back immediately after knowing she was injured. He treated her wounds better than going to the hospital. There was no other way, Nan Yan could only go back obediently. Along the way, Qin Lu drove in front, and Nan Yan sat in the back seat, accompanying Zhang Nai. On the Lu family's side, Nan Yan sent them a message on the way, asking them not to ask what happened to Zhang Nai and to let her calm down. When they saw the message from Nan Yan, the two old men almost turned red-eyed. The pity in their hearts for Zhang Nai made them wish they could kill all those who kidnapped her and feed them to the dogs. After Nan Yan's notification, more than 10 minutes later, the car drove to Luzai. Mr. Lu and Mr. An suppressed their emotions and couldn't help but say to Zhang Nai, it'll be good if you're back safely, it'll be good if you're back. Xiao Nai, you have suffered a lot these days, go and rest. Zhang Nai nodded and said obediently, Grandpa, Master, I'm going back first. Mr. An, yeah, good boy, go and have a rest. Mr. Lu, if you need anything, tell me Isa when the time comes, and she will prepare everything for you. Zhang Nai just responded softly and returned to where she lived. Now, she just wants to be alone for a while, and doesn't want to see anyone. As for Nan Yan, he is being trained by Hua Shifang. The injuries on her hands were clearly caused by her own initiative. The wound was deep and neat, and there was no other possibility except to take the initiative to hold the blade. Moreover, with Nanyan's reaching out, unless she was injured on her own initiative, other ordinary people wouldn't be able to hurt her. Nan Yan explained patiently, Master, the situation was urgent at the time. I didn't have time to think about it. That's it. Can I pay attention next time? Don't you know how precious your hands are? Your left hand is already injured, and now your right hand is injured. You are going to make your master and me angry to death. Hua Shifang scolded fiercely, but his hands were very gentle. Fortunately, the injury this time is not too serious. With special medicine, it can be completely healed within a week at most, without leaving any scars. But within this week, she was considered useless and was going to be a waste who couldn't take care of herself. Sun Chan couldn't help but thought sadly, feeling sorry for her hurting her hands. Nan Yan pursed her lips, feeling guilty and self-blame, which made her heart hurt all the time. She only hurt her hand. Master and the others were so nervous and worried. However, Zhang Nai suffered a heavier injury than she did. Seeing her suddenly depressed, Sun Chan thought it was him and Hua Shifang who had been lecturing her and making her sad. He couldn't bear to talk anymore and coaxed, Okay, Yanyan, don't be sad. Senior brother and I didn't mean it. I want to teach you that you must protect your hands carefully in the future and don't let your hands get injured. Nan Yan calmed down her emotions and nodded, I know. Well, it's good to know. And you, brat, how did you promise us before? Sun Chan let Nan Yan go, stopped nagging her, turned around and pointed his finger at Qin Lu. His attitude towards Qin Lu was not that good. He was as fierce as if he wanted to eat people. Even Qin Lu couldn't avoid this matter. It could be said that he was completely the one taking the blame. But he lowered his head without temper and apologized sincerely, it's my fault for failing to protect Yanyan. What's the use of apologizing if something happens? How can I trust you to hand over Yanyan to you like this? Sun Quan finally found a reason to find fault with Qin Lu. In order to prevent his little cabbage from being pushed by the pig in front of him, he tried every means to find fault with Qin Lu. As a result, Qin Lu did everything so well that he could not find any faults. This time was a good opportunity. Give this stinky boy a good beating. Let him know that it is not so easy for their Yanyan to be abducted by him. Second Master. Nan Yan called him helplessly, "This is none of my brother's business." Sun Quan. He was heartbroken. His little cabbage could not wait to be pushed by the pig. This heart is biased, there is no limit. Qin Lu saw that Sun Quan looked unhappy, coughed lightly, and pinched Nan Yan's left hand gently, then said, "Old Sun is right, it was indeed my mistake this time. I didn't take good care of Yan Yan and let Yan Yan get hurt. I don't want to make excuses to avoid my mistakes, but I hope you can give me another chance. I promise that there will be no next time." Old Hua ignored the two of them and treated Nan Yan's wound carefully. Just like repairing fine porcelain, he sutured the wound tightly, and bandaged her after the hideous knife wound could not be seen. Hua Shifang let go of her hand, then raised his head and said slowly, "Have a good rest. Don't think about going out again before the wound heals. This is a disguised house arrest." Nan Yan shook her head, "Master, I have something important to deal with, and I must go out." She wants to avenge Zhang Nai. Killing those two scumbags is obviously not enough to make her feel relieved. She wants to destroy the entire Black Owl organization. Boss Hua frowned, "You don't listen to Master. Look at your hands, both of them are useless now. Even if you have something, can you still handle it?" "Master, I will take care of the wound and won't cause any secondary damage. Just let me go." She couldn't do it, but it wasn't that she could only use her hands to solve it. Qin Lu understood Nan Yan's anger at this time, but his thoughts coincided with Hua Shifang's. He didn't want Nan Yan to take care of anything before her hands healed. Qin Lu looked at her and said seriously, "Yan Yan, I will help you solve what you want to do. You should be obedient and heal the wound on your hands first. Wait until your hands heal, and then you will take over." Hua Shifang glanced at Qin Lu and felt that he was a little more pleasing to the eye. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. His beloved disciple was abducted just like this, and he was helpless. But there was nothing he could do. Who made him think that Qin Lu was very good, very reliable, and very considerate to his beloved disciple, so he could only hand over his disciple to him with confidence. After all, it's hard to find a man better than Qin Lu. Nan Yan looked a little stubborn and silently rejected Qin Lu's proposal. Seeing this, Hua Shifang could only take a step back. "Yan Yan, no matter what urgent matter you have, let him help you first. At least I will take care of your injury for 3 days. After 3 days, you can do whatever you want. In 3 days, the wound on her right palm will be 80% healed. In the remaining 4 days, as long as her hand does not move too hard, it will not cause secondary damage. Yan Yan, Zhang Nai needs someone to take care of her now. Your company is more important than you investigating the Black Owl group for her." Qin Lu's words touched Nan Yan's heart. She didn't insist anymore, nodded and said, "Okay." Hashtag. After Zhang Nai came back, she locked herself in the room. Mr. N and Mr. Lu were worried about her, but they couldn't go in to comfort her rashly. They couldn't express their concern. Helplessly, they could only stand outside the door, thinking about what excuse to find, which would not irritate her, but also allow them to go in and see her. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 456. Nan Yan came over after bandaging the wound on her hand, and saw the two old men standing outside, both of them looking worried. Zhang Nai had lived in the Yin family for more than half a year. She was sensible and well-behaved, and Grandpa Yin had long regarded her as another granddaughter. Grandpa Lu was the same. From the beginning, he only taught her a little chess, and later accepted her as his apprentice. After knowing her past and experience, he felt more and more distressed and fond of her. He had far less patience with other apprentices than with her. But now, he didn't even know how to comfort her. Seeing Nan Yan coming over, Grandpa Yan first looked at her hand wrapped in gauze. "Yan Yan, is your hand bandaged?" "Well, it's okay. Just try not to use your hands for 7 days. It's no big deal." Nan Yan walked to the two elders. Grandpa, you go back first. Xiao Nai is here with me. Wait until she is more stable, then you can come to see her." Grandpa Yan and Grandpa Lu looked at each other and finally nodded, "Okay." Letting Nan Yan to comfort Zhang Nai will be more effective than the two of them going. "I know," Nan Yan replied lightly, "leave it to me." Grandpa Yan and Grandpa Lu looked at the closed door again, and finally had to leave first. After Nan Yan waited for them to leave, she bent her left index finger and knocked on the door a few times. Zhang Nai came over and opened the door. After a period of calming down, she had calmed down. She looked at Nan Yan seriously and asked softly, "Sister, can you teach me how to become stronger?" She still remembered the first time she met Nan Yan. She was like a hero, standing up when she was bullied, and beating the bad guys with just 3 punches and 2 kicks. In the past few months, she was protected too well by Nan Yan, and she had not been exposed to the darkness of society. There were so many people who cared about her, which made her more and more comfortable. She couldn't let herself be so weak anymore. She wanted to become stronger. "Sister, please teach me martial arts, I want to become like you." For the first time, Zhang Nai was so determined to change herself. "Okay." Nan Yan put her right hand behind her back and stroked her head with her left hand. "Xiao Nai, when you are well, I will teach you martial arts." Zhang Nai suddenly lowered her head and said with self-blame, "Sister, I'm sorry, I made you worry." Nan Yan felt even more guilty. "Don't blame you, it's my fault for not protecting you well." Zhang Nai shook her head. "Don't blame my sister at all. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame herself for being too weak. Sister, have all the others been rescued?" "Everyone has been rescued, not one is missing." Nan Yan praised sincerely, "Xiao Nai did a great job this time. If you hadn't sent me a message, I'm afraid we wouldn't have rescued the kidnapped people so quickly. You are a great hero, Xiao Nai, don't belittle yourself, you are our great hero, the savior of those kidnapped girls and children." Zhang Nai finally smiled a little. "They are all rescued, so good." As she was talking, she suddenly saw the blood flowing on the floor, and her eyes couldn't help but look in the direction of the blood. "Sister, your hand, stretch out your hand." Nan Yan looked back and smiled bitterly. Unexpectedly, she was still found by her. "Xiao Nai, sister is just a little injured, it's okay." Zhang Nai pursed her lips and stubbornly grabbed Nan Yan's hand. Nan Yan sighed and could only stretch out her hand. Zhang Nai's eyes were dry and misty. "Sister, your wound is bleeding again." "It's all my fault." "Don't blame you, it's just a minor injury, I'll bandage it later." "Go now." "I'll go with you." Zhang Nai tore off the towel wrapped around her body, took out a set of long-sleeved and long-trousered clothes from the closet, put them on, and then hurriedly grabbed Nan Yan's arm and dragged her out. Nan Yan. She had already foreseen that she would be scolded again next. Sure enough, when Hua Shifang and Sun Chan, as well as Mr. An and Mr. Lu saw Nan Yan's hand dripping with blood, they immediately became irritable. Nan Yan was completely free now. She was closely watched by several old people, and she was not allowed to leave their sight except to go to bed. And Zhang Nai, at Nan Yan's request, asked Hua Shifang to give her a bottle of pain-relieving and quick-healing ointment for her bruised wound. Everyone was in tacit agreement and didn't ask Zhang Nai anything, which made Zhang Nai feel a little more relaxed and less suffocated. Hashtag. On the other side. Qin Lu returned to the haunted house. Fan Heping and Qin Lu had a plan to arrest all the criminals in the haunted house. Is Nan Yan's injury okay? Fan Heping also learned not long ago that Nan Yan was actually a doctor who could hold a scalpel and enter the operating room. Not only a doctor, but also a powerful hacker. Regardless of her identity, these hands are very important to her. If there are any sequelae, it will definitely be a loss for China. Qin Lu operated the notebook carelessly and said lightly, with Master Hua here, nothing will happen. Fan Heping asked in a deep voice, are you talking about Dr. Hua? He also heard that Nan Yan was the last disciple of Dr. Hua and had a good relationship with Dean Tao of the first hospital. He had never checked these things before. After all, Nan Yan was very sure that she didn't want to join the army, so he didn't investigate it carefully. But after this encounter, he was moved again and asked someone to investigate. This investigation shocked him greatly. He was so shocked that when he saw her injured, he was deeply regretful. Why did he agree to let her participate in the first place? This girl is a gold nugget. No matter which industry she develops in the future, her achievements will not be low. And it is obvious that she is not an ordinary genius. She can take care of multiple industries at the same time. Such talents can't stand any damage. But now he wants to kidnap Nan Yan even more. They also lack such talents. Yes. It's Dr. Hua. Fan Heping stretched out his hand and pressed on Qin Lu's shoulder. Lu, I want to ask you to do something. Qin Lu raised his eyes and didn't agree directly. Tell me. Please help me persuade Nan Yan to go back with me. Qin Lu said calmly and in a very cold voice, don't even think about it. He couldn't bear Nan Yan to suffer so much. Moreover, Nan Yan's goal is scientific research. Even if she wants to enter the university in the future, she will enter the laboratory. Fan Heping said angrily, you stinky boy, I asked you to come with me at the beginning, but you didn't agree. Now I have finally found a good seedling. Not only do you not help me, but you also make trouble for me. Qin Lu said calmly, Captain Fan, I am not making trouble for you, but your idea is very unrealistic. Why am I unrealistic? Yan Yan participated in the independent enrollment of Imperial Capital University this time. With full marks in all subjects, she undoubtedly became the first in the independent enrollment. The deans of several major departments have gone crazy to grab her. Fan Heping. This little girl is so powerful. Deputy Director Chen of the National Research Institute has been looking forward to Yanyan joining for half a year, and he counts the time every day, waiting for her to go to the imperial capital to attend university. Fan Heping. There is also the Divine Doctor sect, which has now been handed over to Yanyan by Divine Dr. Hua. There are many people in other industries who are vying for her. Captain Fan, do you think Yanyan still has time to find you? Fan Heping. I feel very upset. It was not easy for him to find a good seedling that he was satisfied with, but so many people were thinking about her. Listening to Qin Lu's description, it seems that it is indeed difficult for him to bring Nanyan back. No, it is very difficult. Fan Heping sighed, but he still didn't want to give up, so he had to temporarily suppress Nanyan's matter. Raising his hand and rubbing his eyebrows, he put his hand down and asked with a somewhat gloomy expression, that girl, how is she? From the mouths of the rescued girls, he knew what Zhang Nai had done. It can be said that it was Zhang Nai who risked his own safety to pass on the news to them, so that they could rescue the kidnapped people so quickly. Qin Lu paused while typing and said slowly, Yan Yan will take good care of her. If she can't get out of this shadow, then arrange hypnosis for her and let her forget about it. She is a good child. Fan Heping's voice was a bit heavy. I will apply to the higher UPS to report her situation and let the country reward her. You can do it, but keep her identity secret and don't let others disturb her. Qin Lu knew how much Nan Yan cared about Zhang Nai. It should be that Nan Yan cares about the people she recognizes. To put it more clearly, Nan Yan is a protective person. Don't worry, we have experience in this kind of thing. The two talked for a few more sentences, and the sound of a car roared in the distance. There is a situation, Fan Heping said in a low voice, and then looked at Qin Lu, and their expressions became serious. Several vans quickly came to the haunted house. After stopping, nearly 20 people got out of it soon. Then 4 girls who were scared and crying were caught from the car. One of them was the person they arranged to be the bait. Although the address had been found, they had already gone to perform the task, so they simply continued to perform it. Unexpectedly, one of their subordinates really became their target, and she was captured by them, taking the opportunity to protect the captured girls. Today's luck is really bad. We only caught 4 women, and the number is still a little short. There is no way. We have committed too many crimes recently. Now many places are panicking and cautious. If we want to catch people again, we must be careful. It's almost the last minute, so we should be safer. The fewer people, the better. Just don't make trouble. Tomorrow, you don't need to go out to find the goods. Have a good rest for a day, and deliver the goods in high spirits the day after tomorrow. After delivering the goods, I will give you a few days off so that you can relax. A group of people talked and laughed, dragging the 4 girls into the haunted house. Xiaojia, Xiaoyi, where are they? You bastards, are you neglecting your duty and not watching over here properly? A bearded man yelled in a rude voice, took out his cell phone and called the 2 guards. And their boss was looking around thoughtfully, with a pair of sinister eyes, naturally carrying a fierce energy. The call was made, but it didn't go through. The bearded man was puzzled. Xiaojia and Xiaoyi are not ignorant of the importance of things. They will definitely not abandon our mission and go out without permission at this time, right? The boss shook his head, his face a little heavy. Something is wrong. The person standing next to him asked in confusion, "Boss, what's wrong?" Qin Lu stared at the surveillance picture on the screen and said in a calm voice, "Wu Yu, let them be prepared. They have noticed something. Don't let them react. You can launch a sneak attack." Wu Yu, received. 3. And in the surveillance, the man called the boss had a gloomy look in his eyes. It's too quiet today. This subtle difference, if you don't pay attention, you won't think of it at all. Before, there was a faint cry from the room where the girl and the child were locked up. But today, there was no sound at all. Unusually quiet. 2. Everyone, pick up the things in your hands, there may be a problem. At the boss's order, everyone hurriedly took out the weapons they had put away. 1. Just as they were frantically grabbing their weapons, the ambushers appeared instantly. The kidnappers fled and hid behind obstacles. The boss dodged backwards and shouted, "Be careful, there's an ambush. Listen, ambushers, we have hostages." Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 457. The kidnapper boss is now furious. At this time, he couldn't tell where he was. He was being surrounded by the police. As for Xiaojia and Xiaoyi, they have probably been arrested. The girls and children they kidnapped before must have been rescued by the police. That's why the room is extra quiet today. The kidnapper boss was also quite horrified. This place is so secretive. How did the police find it? Moreover, the speed was so fast that they didn't even have a chance to react. After the kidnapper boss finished speaking, he found that they were still in danger. The police did not stop and continued to attack. Seeing the men around him dying and being injured, his eyes were almost splitting. "You don't care about those girls. If you shoot again, I will kill them now." "Old boss." The kidnapper who was responsible for guarding several girls clutched his stomach and screamed with difficulty. There was a hole in his stomach, and blood flowed out. The 3 girls who were originally kidnapped were all protected by Qin Ye, a female soldier who had sneaked in. She was holding a knife only 10 centimeters in size in her hand. This is Qin Ye's secret weapon. The knife used to be deformable. It was usually in the shape of a somewhat rustic metal bracelet. When used, it turned into a sharp blade when opened. It was also for this reason that the knife in Qin Ye's hand was not taken away by the kidnappers when they searched her body, and it became the weapon she now uses for self-defense. Qin Ye whispered to the 3 girls behind her, "Back up, retreat outside, don't be afraid, no one can hurt you." The tearful girl with bangs asked, "But, what about you?" "I am a soldier, and I want to work with my comrades to subdue these criminals." Hearing Qin Ye's words, the girls who were still trembling suddenly looked at her with admiration. "Little sister, you must protect yourself, come on. We are waiting for your good news outside. You are the best." After the 3 girls finished speaking, they ran out decisively. The kidnappers were suppressed by force and there was no way to catch them. The whole process lasted less than 5 minutes and ended with the kidnappers surrendering under absolute force. Before surrendering, the kidnapper secretly sent a special message to a certain number in his pocket, and then restored the phone settings to factory settings. All the messages on his phone were completely erased. The rest was between Fan Heping and the police station. Qin Lu just listened on the sidelines while interrogating the kidnapper boss. What he needed to know was pretty much what he had already investigated during his previous investigation. This kidnapper boss was just a handyman collecting goods for the Black Lord Group. With an identity of this level, one can only be considered a peripheral member among the Black Owls, not even a central member. In addition to doing things according to orders, they have very little information. Sure enough, after being tortured, what he got was basically similar to what he found. For the rest, Qin Lu did not continue to participate. Fan Heping said something and went to Luzai to see Nan Yan. Hashtag. After Nan Yan's hand was bandaged twice, Hua Shifang put a plaster on it very domineeringly, completely preventing her from moving her hand and causing the wound to crack. Regarding this, Nan Yan felt speechless in her heart. She wanted to refuse, but she couldn't say it yet. Well, there was nothing she could do, the master was angry, and she didn't dare to resist. Before Qin Lu came, Lin Xian also got the news. Lin Xian's body has recovered and is completely the same as a normal person. She can run and jump without worrying that her heart will not be able to bear the load. After entering the door, she hugged Zhang Nai first, and then said fearfully, "Xiao Nai, fortunately you are fine, I am worried to death." She happened to go to the imperial capital 2 days ago to attend a gathering of the Painting Association, so she didn't know about it in time. Zhang Nai obediently let her hold her, shook her head and said, "Sister Yan, I'm fine." "Yeah, okay, it's okay, it's okay." Lin Xian hugged her, his hands still caressing her back, silently comforting her. Then, Lin Xian saw Nan Yan's hand wrapped in plaster and exclaimed, "Yan Yan, what's wrong with your hand? How did you get hurt? Is it serious?" Nan Yan smiled and explained, "It's okay, just a little skin injury, the hand is not broken. It was my master who made a big fuss and insisted on adding a layer of plaster on the outside." She would not wear a plaster to treat a broken bone, but her master forcibly used a plaster to imprison her hand because of the knife wound on her palm. It can be seen that the master was very angry with her this time. She felt guilty and knew that she was wrong, so even though her hand felt very inconvenient now, she did not dare to mention taking off the plaster. After 3 days, when the wound is almost healed, Let the master remove it. Are you really okay? Lin Ziyan asked again worriedly. Nan Yanwen smiled and said, well, it's really okay. Lin Ziyan went over again, hugged Nan Yan, and then smiled, you must all be well. She only has 2 friends with them, and in her heart, they have long been as close as sisters. Both Nan Yan and Zhang Nai had helped her a lot, especially what Nan Yan had done for her, which she would never be able to repay in her lifetime. How lucky she was to meet the 2 of them in this life. Nan Yan patted her shoulder. Lin Ziyan's eyes were a little wet. She raised her hand and wiped it with embarrassment. She sat with the 2 of them intimately. Since the summer vacation, the 3 of them have not been together for a long time. Now they finally meet, and they have a lot to say. Nan Yan observed Zhang Nai's mood and asked, did you go to the painting association smoothly this time? Lin Ziyan nodded, fortunately, Mr. Zhong is very good and takes good care of me. Mr. Zhong's artistic attainments are still very high. You should learn from Mr. Zhong. With your talent, you will achieve great success in the future. Lin Ziyan nodded more vigorously this time, I will. She knew that if Nan Yan hadn't introduced Mr. Zhong to her, she would not have the opportunity to meet a person like him. And Mr. Zhong would take special care of her because of Nan Yan's face. Nan Yan is her benefactor. The 2 of them were chatting casually, and Zhang Nai sat quietly aside, occasionally saying a few words, but from her expression, she was very calm in her heart. Lin Ziyan was shocked by her abnormality and couldn't help but feel more distressed for him. The 3 chatted for a while, and Qin Lu came. Then, Qin Lu saw her hand wrapped in plaster at a glance. Yan Yan, what's wrong with your hand? It was obviously not like this when he left. Besides, her hand was not a knife wound. It's not a fracture, why is it in plaster? Nan Yan. This is really a sad topic. She blinked at Qin Lu in a cute way, it's just a little accident, master thinks I'm not honest, so. Qin Lu. How dishonest. Master Hua is really good. Qin Lu silently gave Hua Shifang a thumbs up in his heart. You Qin Lu tapped her forehead helplessly, did you make Mr. Hua angry again? Nan Yan looked at him with innocent eyes, I didn't mean it. Lin Ziyan, who was standing by, had already moved to another place when Qin Lu came, and ran to Zhang Nai and sat opposite Nan Yan with her. Looking at the interaction between Nan Yan and Qin Lu at this time, it felt like pink bubbles were popping up between the 2 of them. Lin Ziyan hugged Zhang Nai's waist, put her head next to her, and whispered, Xiao Nai, let's not be light bulbs here. Otherwise, single dogs are easily fed dog food to death. Zhang Nai nodded and whispered, okay. In fact, she wanted to be alone. But her sister said that if she wanted to become stronger, the first thing was to overcome her current resistance to seeing people and just wanting to hide in a corner alone. She wanted to free herself from those negative emotions as soon as possible. She could never forget what happened, but she wanted to turn the humiliation of that scene into her motivation to work hard to become stronger. Zhang Nai and Lin Ziyan ran out quietly. However, Nan Yan and Qin Lu still noticed their tiptoeing. But they pretended not to see it. After they walked away, Qin Lu got up, went back to the door, and closed it. All the kidnappers hiding in the haunted house have been caught by the police station, and none of them escaped. Nan Yan's eyes were gloomy, how much useful information did you get? Basically none. Qin Lu sat beside her, holding her plastered hand, playing with it carelessly. Even the kidnapper's boss is only the outermost member of the Black Owl group. The most useful information obtained by torture is that they will send the people they kidnapped to a designated place on the high seas the day after tomorrow to hand over to his superior. Team Fan will go to the designated place on the same day, hoping to catch the superior by then. Brother, will you participate? It depends on Team Fan's opinion. If he looks for me, I will go back. If he doesn't look for me, then I can't go openly. In other words, no matter what the result is, he will go. One is for Nan Yan. He knew that Nan Yan wanted to find out the gang and destroy it to avenge Zhang Nai. Another reason is that he can't tolerate the continued existence of such a criminal organization. It doesn't matter if he doesn't know about its existence. Since he knows about it, it should be eliminated. Nan Yan was silent for a moment, and gently tugged his clothes with his left hand. A pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes looked at him with some expectation. "Brother?" No, Qin Lu refused decisively before she finished her words. "Nan Yan. Is it useless for her to act like a spoiled child?" Qin Lu reached out and stroked her head. "Yan Yan, before your hand is healed, you are not allowed to participate in any dangerous things. Just let me do what you want to do." Nan Yan looked at him silently for 10 seconds, said "oh" faintly, stepped back and leaned on the back of the sofa to avoid Qin Lu's pat on the head. Qin Lu's hand missed, and he was stunned for a moment. Seeing that the little guy seemed a little unhappy, he sneered and took his hand back. "Yan Yan," he called in a low voice. Nan Yan raised her eyes and gave him a questioning look. "What?" "Yan Yan, can you be more considerate of your brother?" Nan Yan didn't say anything, just looked at him quietly. Qin Lu continued to explain, "I signed a military order with your master, your grandfather, and your grandpa that you can't get hurt again. You can't let me break my promise again, right?" The last sentence, the voice was a little softer, and there was a kind of begging meaning. Nan Yan. When did she give them the illusion that she was weak and could be bullied and hurt by anyone? Oh. It was these 2 times that she was injured in succession. Nan Yan really wanted to raise her right hand and rub her eyebrows. But seeing the silly and cute plaster on her right hand, she changed her heart to her left hand and rubbed her eyebrows. Qin Lu saw that her attitude showed signs of loosening, and continued to say, "Yan Yan, just think of it as for me, be patient for a few days, huh?" "Okay." Nan Yan looked at her 2 hands and could guess that her master and grandfather would definitely not let her take risks before her hands were healed. With them watching, it would not be so easy for her to go. In addition, Qin Lu said so pitifully, she couldn't let him be scolded by the master and others again. "Good boy." Qin Lu curled his lips, rubbed her head, and his heart softened. Hashtag. Somewhere. The man's phone on the table vibrated, and an unread message icon appeared. He reached out and took it, and clicked on the message. Then, he frowned and whispered, "They were caught." Not only were all the goods rescued by the police, but they also exposed the news related to them. What a thing that is not good at doing things but more at making trouble. The man snorted coldly, returned the page on the phone, entered the dialing page, found a phone number, and dialed it directly. "Notify those who are going to pick up goods in the high seas of China to return." After a simple explanation, he hung up the phone. Hashtag. 2 days later, Qin Lu was invited by Fan Heping to go to sea with them. They wanted to follow the clues and catch his superiors through the information provided by the kidnapper boss, and then force him to ask for more useful information. However, after waiting for a long time, from sunrise to the next day, there was no passing ship on the sea. Fan Heping waited until he lost his temper, turned back to the cabin, kicked the kidnapper boss, and kicked him to the ground 3 times. "When will the person who will meet you come?" Ahem. The kidnapper boss coughed painfully for a long time, vomiting blood and retching, I don't know. Today is the time to pick up the goods. If they didn't come, it means that the time was changed temporarily." He finished speaking with difficulty, his face full of fear, and said nervously and fearfully, "I am just a small follower, I don't have so much power. If they don't come, I can't do anything." "It seems that you haven't told the truth until now." Fan Heping raised his hand and shot him in the leg, and then ordered coldly, "Tie him up and throw him into the sea. This is the deep sea, under the sea, There are countless sharks living. Blood will attract sharks. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 458. The kidnapper boss screamed and was thrown into the sea. Qin Lu and Fan Heping stood on the deck, watching him struggling desperately in the sea. The more he struggled, the faster the blood flowed from his wound, and the smell of blood soon attracted the sharks not far away. "Ah, help me, I say, I say. Save me up." The kidnapper boss was already scared, and he struggled and shouted at the two of them. He didn't want to die. Although he reported the news to his superiors, he really didn't want to die. If it was a headshot, he would accept it. But he didn't dare to die by being bitten to death by a shark, such a cruel way of death. Hearing his call for help, Qin Lu raised his hand. The people standing by the railing began to pull the rope to pull the kidnapper boss out of the sea. He was almost bitten off half of his body by the shark. The kidnapper boss was pulled up and thrown on the deck. He coughed and spit out water, and his whole body couldn't stop shaking. After spitting out the sea water that had choked his lungs, the kidnapper boss was picked up. "Tell me everything you know." Qin Lu's indifferent words, without much emotional fluctuation, frightened the kidnapper boss so much that his back was cold. "I said." In order to survive, the kidnapper boss told them the most confidential things he knew. Hashtag. 5 days later. The plaster on Nanyan's right hand was finally broken and removed. The wound on the palm has basically healed, leaving only a somewhat conspicuous scar. The wound on the left wrist has also healed. Moving his almost stiff hands, Nanyan looked up and asked sincerely, "Master, second master, Grandpa, Grandpa, you have been watching me for 5 days, can I go out now?" The four old men. The little apprentice/granddaughter/granddaughter can't stay idle when she is a little better, what should I do? But they also knew that Nanyan did have a lot of things to do, and she was able to stay at home and recuperate for 5 days because they watched her closely and didn't let her run away. Now that her injuries have healed, they have no reason to lock her up at home again. The four elders sighed together and nodded in agreement. "Go." Nanyan finally persuaded the four elders to let her go out, and Qin Lu came to pick her up. In front of the four elders, Qin Lu made a military order to protect Nanyan and prevent her from losing another hair. Nanyan wanted to laugh a little. Look at how she scared these people who care about her. But then she reflected on it. For the sake of these people who care about her, she must avoid getting hurt again in the future. It was more than an hour after leaving Lu's house. Qin Lu held Nanyan's hand, lowered his head, and looked at the very new scar on her wrist. After looking at it for a long time, he asked with pity, "Can scars be removed by applying scar removal ointment?" "Yes, Master has prepared scar removal ointment for me. Apply it once before going to bed every day, and the scar will fade in a month." Nanyan gently pulled out of his palm, then turned her hand and crossed her fingers with him. "Brother, let's deal with the business first." "Okay." Qin Lu and Nanyan went to find Fan Heping. Over the years, Interpol has been tracking their whereabouts. But they have not found much useful information. It can be said that the ability of this gang to hide is not worse than the 7 deadly sins. In fact, it is similar in nature. In about a week, the auction called Sea Feast will be held on a small island. This is an opportunity to wipe them out in one fell swoop. In order to rescue other kidnapped people, the superiors sent several teams to find the specific coordinates. But now, they are all missing. Fan Heping's eyes fell on Nanyan and Qin Lu. All the communication equipment they carried has failed, and the locators implanted in their bodies have not fed back the address and are in a shielded state. We don't even know whether those teams are alive or dead now. Qin Lu, Nanyan, I need you to use your computer technology to find out their whereabouts. They are talents cultivated by the country with great energy and resources. They can't just disappear like this, and their life and death are unknown. Captain Fan, leave it to us. Qin Lu and Nan Yan have no choice but to do this. Fan Heping knew that they would agree. At that moment, he took the two into the information room. You can use the equipment here at will. If you have any needs, just tell me. This is a matter of saving lives in a race against time. After Nan Yan and Qin Lu sat down in front of the computer, they entered the working state. It was the first time for the two to work together, and what was rare was that they had a great tacit understanding. An hour later, the two finally captured the last location of the missing person. Fan Heping immediately contacted the higher UPS and told them the location. An hour later, there was news. After answering the phone, Fan Heping said in a heavy tone, "There is a vast sea there, and they are no longer there. The other party is in a moving state in the sea, so they will naturally not wait in place." Nan Yan controlled the mouse and enlarged the map of that sea area. "But we are too far away from them, and it is even more difficult to lock them. Brother, let's go to the sea." "Okay," Qin Lu responded in a calm voice. Fan Heping looked at the two and sighed again in his heart. Why can't he get any of these two good seedlings? Epsilon equals Omicron asterisk, alas. But the most important thing now is to find the missing people. We will talk about other things after we find the whereabouts of those people. Fan Heping wanted to help them arrange a flight, but considering that a private plane was more suitable, Qin Lu refused. Just when Qin Lu went to arrange the flight, his who hurried to the police station. When Nan Yan saw him, she couldn't help but frown slightly and called out, "Mr. He." Yan, his who looked back and saw her with a surprised look on his face. "What are you doing here?" "No, why are you here?" Nan Yan looked at him and did not answer his question. Instead, she asked, "He's in Thung, what's the relationship with you?" When she was checking for those whose whereabouts were unknown, she saw someone named He's in Thung among the people. Seeing his who running in such a hurry again, I doubted the relationship between them. "Zin Thung, is my daughter." Mentioning He's in Thung, his who had tears in his eyes. "Yan, I only have one daughter, Zin Thung. She had to be a soldier. I couldn't stop her, I could only let her do it. I asked her to change her job to be a clerk, but she said that her dream is to fight crime and protect the people, and she must be on the front line. Before going on this mission, she even called me and said that when she came back from this mission, she would take time off to spend time with me at home." Who knew? His who covered his eyes in pain, hiding his despair and vulnerability. Nan Yan pulled his hand down, raised her chin slightly, looked level with him, and said gently but firmly, "Mr. He, I promise you, I will bring her back intact, and she will be fine. Trust me, huh?" His who knew Nan Yan's ability and quickly said gratefully, Yan, please help me." Nan Yan patted the back of his hand comfortingly, "You don't have to be polite to me." He Lifeng got into the car and hurried in. "Miss Nan, why are you here?" "Here to help." Nan Yan put his whose hand in his. "Take care of your father, and leave the rest to us." He Lifeng was stunned for a moment before he realized what Nan Yan meant. She was going to save his sister. He Lifeng quickly thanked him, and finally reminded him, "Miss Nan, you must be careful." Fan Heping and his who were also old acquaintances. He brought them to his office and asked them to wait for news here. Soon, Qin Lu came back and the plane was already in place and ready to take off at any time. Fan Heping also wanted to go together. But here, someone must stay. In desperation, he repeatedly warned the two of them to pay attention to safety and protect themselves. After Qin Lu agreed, he tilted his head and said warmly, "Yan, let's go." Hashtag. The plane stopped on the sea area they found. Here, the two investigated again and finally broke through each other's signal shielding and found their exact coordinates. After the coordinates were sent to Fan Heping, Nan Yan discussed with Qin Ye and planned to go directly to rescue people. A cruise ship is sailing on the sea and moving forward at full speed. In the sky, a private plane was approaching quickly. Then it overtook the cruise ship and flew some distance ahead of the cruise ship, and the aircraft began to descend. The plane began to land at a certain height, the cabin door was opened, and Qin Lu and Nan Yan jumped out of the plane. The water instantly submerged the two of them, and dozens of seconds later, their heads emerged from the water. Wu Yu controlled the plane to rise. In order to avoid being discovered by the people on the other side's cruise ship, he did not stay where he was and flew to other places first to wait for orders. Nan Yan and Qin Lu stayed still in the sea, floating on the sea without any effort. When the cruise ship came, they both swam towards the cruise ship at the same time. The waves generated by the cruise ship moving at full speed were huge and difficult for ordinary people to approach. However, Nan Yan and Qin Lu used their skills to swim against the waves. They boarded the cruise ship without any difficulty, and through the underwater water exchange device of the hull, the two people entered the cruise ship without anyone noticing. After finding a secret place to hide their diving equipment, the two went to deal with the two sailors, put on their clothes, appeared in the cabin openly, and started looking for He Xintheng and the other people who were captured. But searching one by one would be a waste of time and could easily expose one's identity. Nan Yan and the others came to the middle of the ship and hid in a utility room. Qin Lu took out a compact microcomputer wrapped in a waterproof bag from his arms. Remove the waterproof bag, take it out, and turn on the computer. Use the smart devices on the cruise ship to understand the situation of the entire cruise ship first. This is a special cruise ship used to transfer kidnapped people. The missing people were all on this ship. But the situation is not good. However, after checking the surveillance cameras, Nan Yan could not find He Xintheng's whereabouts. Among the missing people this time, only He Xintheng is a woman, the others are all men, so they are easy to identify. During the surveillance, Nan Yan also saw a picture that made her furious. What Zhang Nai once endured is now happening on this cruise ship. After Nan Yan noted down the location of the kidnappers on the cruise ship, he raised his head and said coldly to Qin Lu, "Brother, let's move separately and move faster." "Well, Yan Yan, be careful." Qin Lu believed in Nan Yan's ability. After her hands are fully recovered, she will have no problem dealing with these people. In the current situation, if they separate, they can save these people faster. Nan Yan nodded, and the two separated and began to clean up the Black Owl gang members on the ship from two directions. Like two ghosts, they entered a deserted land and quickly reaped the sinful lives one by one. "You are saved." Every time he went to a room and eliminated the guards, Nan Yan would say the same thing to the people locked inside. The abducted women saw the hope of freedom and couldn't help but cry with joy. They hugged each other, giving each other warmth while absorbing each other's warmth to express their excitement and joy at being reborn. But after getting excited, some women who have been violated by bad guys cannot help but break down emotionally. Their lives are ruined. Even if they are freed, they will be looked down upon and disliked by others in society. The shadow of being caught by bad guys will accompany them until their death. Various cries could be heard in Nan Yan's ears. Her face was expressionless and her brows were furrowed. She doesn't know how to comfort people, so she is a little helpless in this situation. She didn't have time to comfort them either. She must find He Xintheng first. Those who are not injured should take care of the injured. If you are scared, don't leave the room and wait for rescue. She left a message and went to find He Xintheng. After searching one by one, I finally found her in a secret room without surveillance. The scene inside made Nan Yan run into a rage. She strode in, picked up the naked man and threw him outside. At the same time, she kicked him against the door. She paused for almost a second before falling down. Her spine was twisted and deformed, and she vomited blood. And saw that there was only outgoing air, no incoming air. With murderous intent in her eyes, Nan Yan walked over to He Xintheng, who was in a coma. Her clothes had been stripped down to her underwear, but her panties were still there. She checked again to make sure that she had not been violated, and her murderous aura eased a little. She stretched out her hand and pressed on her wrist for about 10 seconds. After confirming that she had just fainted from the drug and that her body was not seriously injured, she took out a silver needle and stuck it into He Xinthung's acupuncture point. Bastard, looking for death. He Xinthung woke up and without even seeing the person in front of him clearly, he waved his hand and hit Nan Yan. Nan Yan raised his hand to block it and shouted, He Xinthung. He Xinthung. Weird, how do these people know her name? No, it was a woman's voice that just called her name. He Xinthung quickly took his hand back, and when he saw Nan Yan's appearance, he glared, Who are you? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 459. He Xinthung saw Nan Yan's look and glared, Who are you? Where did such a beautiful little sister come from? Was she also captured by these people? No. He Xinthung looked around and saw her own situation, and her face suddenly changed. She quickly picked up the clothes on the ground and put them on. I'm Nan Yan. Nan Yan introduced her name to He Xinthung. Xinthung, your father is very worried about you, report to him that you are safe. He Xinthung is about 25 years old, which is about the same as her real age. Are you Nan Yan? He Xinthung heard his who talk about Nan Yan, and this is the first time she has seen her in person. But this little sister in front of her looks no more than 20 years old. Is she really the amazing little doctor her father said? But since she is a doctor, why is she here again? He Xinthung is a little confused. Well, I'm Nan Yan. Nan Yan dialed a mobile phone number, then handed her phone to He Xinthung. Let's report to Mr. He first. When his who received Nan Yan's call, his mood instantly became anxious. Yan Yan. Is there any news? He Xinthung glanced at Nan Yan first, then whispered, Dad, it's me. His whose eyes turned red after He Xinthung's words. Xinthung. Are you injured? Dad, I'm fine, don't worry. He Xinthung made a gesture to Nan Yan, took the phone to the side, and coaxed his who on the phone. On Qin Lu's side, the progress was just as fast. One person was left alive, and the rest were all dealt with. He carried the person alive and came to Nan Yan. The noble man, at this time, was surrounded by a fierce and murderous aura, and was slowly suppressed after seeing Nan Yan. Seeing that Nan Yan was not injured, the worry was calmed down a lot. Yan Yan, how is the situation here? Fortunately. Nan Yan leaned against the wall and curled her lips slightly to Qin Lu, at least, we saved them. Finally, there is a little gain. She lowered her head slightly, her long eyelashes covering the anger in her eyes. On the way here, I was very worried that I would be too late. Fortunately. With the tragedy of Zhongnai, she really didn't want a second tragedy to happen. If she came a few minutes later, He Xinthung would also. Qin Lu put his arm around Nan Yan's shoulders and hugged her gently. Yan Yan, you did a good job, always good. He didn't want her to blame herself too much and take all the responsibility on herself. This is obviously not her fault. Nan Yan controlled her emotions very well, closed her eyes and opened them again, and had already hidden her emotions very well. Contact Captain Fan first, let him feel at ease first. Yeah. Qin Lu contacted Fan Heping and reported the situation here. As for the other people who were captured, Nan Yan woke them all up and then took over the cruise ship. After He Xinthung finished her phone call with his who, she went to find Nan Yan. She returned the phone and thanked him sincerely. Nan Yan, thank you. Nan Yan took it and put it back in her pocket directly. You're welcome, it's just a matter of convenience. Then she asked calmly, "What are you going to do next?" He Xinthung flicked her pretty short hair and said decisively, "Send these people back first. The mission is important, but the lives of these ordinary people are more important." Yes, Nan Yan nodded, looking at her levelly. "You are responsible for evacuating these people and finding the location of the Black Owl gang. Leave it to us. She must destroy this criminal gang. It cannot continue to exist and threaten the lives and safety of more people." Fan Heping conveyed the order from above, and the cruise ship returned to send the people above back. "Nan Yan, can I exchange contact information with you?" He Xinthung likes Nan Yan very much. Although this is the first time they met, she has known her from his who. She is very interested in the girl who admires and praises her father, and wants to make friends with her. Nan Yan was also quite fond of He Xinthung's straightforwardness. She took out her phone and opened the WeChat dating page, of course. After the two added each other as friends, He Xinthung shook her phone at her. "My phone has added you as a friend. Can I apply to be your friend?" Nan Yan smiled, "Yes." "Yeah, then we will be friends from now on." After He Xinthung finished speaking, she waved her hand and said, "I will go and comfort the girl who is out of control. I will come to you when I have time." Nan Yan looked at her back and a faint smile appeared on the corner of her lips. This girl is quite to her liking. I hope they will have a chance to get along in the future. After He Xinthung left, Nan Yan went to the cockpit to find Qin Lu. When Qin Lu saw her coming, he put down the whip in his hand and waved at her. "Yan Yan, this person, let you interrogate him. This kind of thing is most suitable for her. After all, the endless poison in her hands can easily make any stubborn and loyal captives reveal the truth." If he continued to interrogate, he was worried that he would beat the man to death. Nan Yan glanced at the man covered in blood, who had obviously been tortured, and raised his eyebrows. "Okay. Hashtag. On the high seas more than 1,000 kilometers away from the cruise ship. A ship much larger than the cruise ship was floating quietly on the sea. In the bedroom, a man and a woman were having intense exercise when the door was suddenly kicked open. "What the hell, Zhongshan, what are you doing?" Li Si was enjoying himself when he was suddenly interrupted. He was so frightened that his face suddenly dropped and he hurriedly picked up the sheet to cover his body. Zhongshan stepped up and gave him a kick, and said angrily, "Besides these things, what else do you do all day long? These women are going to be sent to the city of desire. Who allowed you to touch them?" Li Si didn't take it seriously and said, "Don't be so strict. There are so many goods anyway. It doesn't matter if I play with just one or two. You just said something happened. What happened?" He wiped his body haphazardly and put on his clothes first. As for the crying woman, he threw him aside and paid no attention to her pain. Zhongshan glanced at it, frowned, threw a sheet on the woman, and said in a cold voice, "Brother Gangwei sent a message that a cruise ship transporting cargo changed its route midway and returned to the dock. He could not be contacted. People inside, maybe there was an accident on the ship. He asked us to check it out. Oh, let's go there then." Hashtag. With Nan Yan taking action, no matter how tough his mouth was, it was pried open. This time, they got some news about the Black Owl. The Black Owl's headquarters is in a place called the City of Desire. And this City of Desire is not on the mainland, but a city that is always moving on the sea. For every delivery, only when it reaches the designated location will you be prompted for the next step. Each time, you have to move at least 3 times on the sea to reach that place. The person they arrested was escorting cargo to the City of Desire for the first time this year, but he didn't know the specific information. Only the person with the highest position on the ship knew about it. But that person has been dealt with by Qin Lu. So, now they have lost another clue to find the headquarters of the Black Owl gang. Qin Lu raised his hand and rubbed his eyebrows. Misstep. Who knows, he might leave the wrong person alive. Nan Yan sighed sadly. Seeing Qin Lu blaming himself, he suppressed his helplessness and said comfortingly, "It's okay. Let's continue the investigation. Anyway, they still have time." Qin Lu touched Nan Yan's head apologetically, and was about to say something else when Wu Yu's voice came from the earphones. "Master, there is a plane approaching here again. It is expected that in another half hour, it will fly directly over the cruise ship. Master, do you want to shoot it down?" The plane Wu Yu flew appeared to be an ordinary private plane, but its specifications were designed according to those of a fighter jet, and it had various attack capabilities. Compared with the most advanced fighter planes, its power is not inferior. If you want to shoot down an ordinary helicopter, it only takes a matter of minutes. Qin Lu replied calmly, "No, let it come." Wu Yu, received. After ending the call with Wu Yu, Qin Lu reached out and snapped his fingers in front of Nan Yan, smiling. "Yan Yan, the person who sent the clues came to the door himself." Nan Yan slowly raised her lips, "Then let's wait for the reception." Zhang Shan and Li Si flew a helicopter over the cruise ship and saw that the cruise ship was indeed sailing in the opposite direction. They began to try to use radio to contact the people in the cockpit. "Zhengtu, why did you return? Zhengtu, why did you return? If you hear it, please answer." Zhou Hao, who was controlling the cruise ship, turned around and asked, "Mr. Qin, how should we answer?" Since Qin Lu and Nan Yan rescued them and showed super abilities, the two of them have become the temporary backbone. Qin Lu looked at Nan Yan. "Yan Yan, what do you think you should answer?" A trace of evil flashed across Nan Yan's eyes, and she said coldly, "Just find any excuse to lure them down." Zhou Hao. This is a difficult question. What excuse is he going to make to lure the people down? While he was struggling, another voice came from the speaker, "Zhengtu Hao, can you hear it? Zhengtu Hao, please answer when you receive it." Zhou Hao couldn't think of a good way, so he simply gritted his teeth and said, "This is the journey. Our cruise ship has a fault and needs to return in time for repairs." "Zhengtu, why did you lose contact before?" "Zhou Hao, the radio is damaged and can only send messages at close range." On the plane, Li Si put down the communicator and said with a smile, "It turns out that the cruise ship had a malfunction, so we went back for repairs temporarily. Since you're here, why don't we go down and take a look?" Zhang Shan was too cautious and did not fully believe Zhengtu Hao's answer. He first stopped Li Si from speaking, took the communicator, and asked in a deep voice, "Zhengtu's liaison officer, what is your name?" Zhou Hao looked at the two of them as if asking for help. Nan Yan glanced at the tortured living being who was almost out of his mind and said, "Your name?" "Ding Xiaosan." Ding Xiaosan's whole body was trembling. He really wanted to die. But, he can't die. If he fell into Nan Yan's hands, he would be worse off than dead. The pain Nan Yan had just caused him had already completely collapsed him. He didn't dare to slack off at all regarding Nan Yan's problem. Zhou Hao twitched the corner of his mouth. What a mean name. He endured the embarrassment and said, "I am Ding Xiaosan." Zhang Shan checked the names and found that the liaison officer on the Zhengtu was named Ding Xiaosan. Could it be that he is too worried? "Zhengtu, I'm going to land now, please be ready." Zhengtu number received. Zhou Hao happily opened the temporary helipad to facilitate the landing of the plane overhead. Nan Yan and Qin Lu looked at each other and went to the deck. The helicopter landed slowly. Zhang Shan and Li Si saw from the window that a man and a woman walked out of the cabin. There happened to be a female employee on the Zhengtu. In addition, the distance was too far and they could not see each other's exact appearance. The two did not have much defense. After getting off the plane, they walked towards them. When they were about to meet, the two saw Nan Yan and Qin Lu clearly. Their super high looks made Zhang Shan immediately alert. But Li Si was not at all vigilant. When he saw Nan Yan's appearance, his eyes lit up. "Which department is your sister from? Why haven't I seen her before?" The Black Owl is an extremely large organization. Their internal members also have a clear division of labor and each has their own tasks. Just like him, his position is relatively easy. He doesn't have to go out to run business to death. He only needs to connect with the news and give directions to these cruise ships transporting goods. If there is deviation, he will correct their direction in time. It's that simple. It's thanks to his connections that he got this position. Most people don't have such a good opportunity. Nan Yan said calmly, "Newcomer, just joined for less than 2 years, still familiar with the business." "Newcomers are good." Li Si's eyes brightened, and he said enthusiastically, "Sister, do you want to be promoted faster?" Nan Yan smiled sweetly, "Of course I do, but my qualifications are not enough." Li was immediately attracted by Nan Yan, and patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, as long as you are willing to follow me, I will definitely let you be promoted quickly in the organization and become a key member. When you become a key member, work hard for a few more years, you can become a core member, and then you can wait to enjoy the glory and wealth, and live a life of luxury." He didn't say a word, and Qin Lu looked at him with a cold look. But due to their purpose, he could only temporarily suppress his killing intent and listen to him painting a pie for Nan Yan expressionlessly. Zhang Shan somewhat disliked Li Si. He wanted to pounce on beautiful women when he saw them. He had no moral integrity. But who made him have a good brother-in-law? He climbed up step by step with his own strength, but Li Si only needed a word from his brother-in-law to easily be in the same position with him. This kind of unfairness exists everywhere. Nan Yan and Qin Lu quickly made a plan before the two of them came down. Use these two people to sneak into the City of Desire. Zhang Shan and Li Si followed them to the cabin. Zhou Hao and his men had already changed into the clothes of those peripheral members of the Black Owl and pretended to be their people. As for those peripheral members of the Black Owl, they were thrown into the sea to feed the sharks. Li Si and Zhang Shan took a circle inside and did not see anything abnormal. Finally, after confirming that the cruise ship was indeed broken, they reported it to Brother Wei. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 460. The journey cruise continued to return as planned. Nan Yan established a good relationship with Li Si, and got on their plane with Qin Lu, taking the opportunity to get into the network of relationships at a higher level. "Sister, what's your name?" On the plane, Li Si's eyes seemed to be glued to Nan Yan, and he didn't even blink. Lin Ying Nan Yan smiled lightly and told him a fake name. Li Si's smile to Nan Yan directly moved his mind. He stared at her beautiful face with a bit of lust, and stretched out his hands to her. "Sister Lin is not only beautiful, but also has such a nice name." Qin Lu's anger was almost unbearable, and he couldn't bear it anymore. He took a step forward and stood between Nan Yan and Li Si, grabbed his hand and said coldly, "Mr. Li, she is still young, please don't mess around." Li Si's face suddenly changed. "Who are you? You dare to stop me? I like your sister, it's her blessing. In the future, she will be with me and have everything she wants. You know how many women are eager to climb into my bed." Li Si's words of blasphemy against Nan Yan made Qin Lu unable to bear it anymore. When Nan Yan saw Qin Lu was angry, she took the lead before he took action. He threw out 6 silver needles with his left and right hands at the same time. Before Li Si and Zhang Shan could react, each of them had been stabbed with 3 needles. You. Li Si's eyes widened, fear emerged from the bottom of his heart. After being pierced by these 3 silver needles, he couldn't move, his heart hurt so much that it seemed to be about to explode. In just 3 seconds, his face turned red, and the color showed signs of continuing to darken. Zhang Shan was calmer than Li Si, but his condition was not much better than Li Si. He endured the pain in his heart and quietly took out his mobile phone to pass on the message. As a result, as soon as he moved his hand, Qin Lu kicked him on the wrist. With a crisp sound of bone breaking, Zhang San screamed and collapsed on the seat in embarrassment, clenching his teeth. Originally, Nan Yan planned to use a more natural way to gain the trust of these two people and sneak into the City of Desire. Now that they have taken action, they can only change their methods and control them in a more domineering way. 2 poison pills were fed into their mouths. Then Nan Yan took Qin Lu's hand, pressed him to sit on the double sofa on the other side, and began to coax him. Qin De Lao was angry. Although she didn't show much emotion on the surface, she could feel the anger of someone who was about to destroy the world. "Don't be angry, brother. I will definitely not let him take advantage of me. If you are unhappy, I won't use the beauty trap in the future." Qin Lu. What made Qin De Lao even more upset was that Nan Yan had never used the beauty trap on him, but used it on other men. Of course, Nan Yan didn't do anything, just smiled at Li Si, and didn't do anything else. But her smile was so seductive that he wanted to hide her and not let anyone see her. Qin Lu was silent and didn't say a word. Nan Yan simply took a long leg and sat on Qin Lu's legs, put her hands around his neck, and said in a delicate voice, "Alu." Qin Lu almost lost his soul because of Nan Yan's shout. He clasped her waist with both hands, then hugged her side, and used his body to completely cover Nan Yan, then lowered his head and kissed her lips fiercely. As for the other 2 people in the cabin, Li Si and Zhang Shan had no time to watch their dog-torturing behavior. The poison was slowly taking effect. The pain from inside to outside was as if countless poisonous insects were crawling and biting every blood vessel and meridian in their bodies. The pain was unbearable. This kind of bone-eroding and long-lasting pain was simply going to drive people crazy. If they were still able to move, they would probably end their lives without hesitation and would not want to endure such pain again. They were both in so much pain that they wanted to hit the wall and kill themselves. As a result, these 2 were still here to torture the dog. It was too much. It was simply murderous. Heartbreaking. The 2 people, who were in pain and despair, almost thought that they would not only be forced to feed dog food, but also be forced to watch a live pornographic palace. However, their wish did not come true. Qin Lu and Nan Yan's self-control and endurance were both abnormally amazing. Obviously, the dry wood and the fire were about to burn, but the 2 only stopped at kissing. And he could break temporarily, resisting the desire to roll over, and stopped. After slowly calming down, Nan Yan tidied up her clothes, got off Qin Lu's legs, and walked towards Zhang Shan and Li Si. Li Si tried to raise his head and begged for mercy. Save me, I don't want to be. I'll give you money, give you everything, spare me." Nan Yan went up and kicked him, making him feel the pain of broken balls instantly. "Ah!" A shrill scream sounded in the cabin, and the next second, Li Si fainted from the pain. Kill me." Zhang Shan was so painful that he couldn't bear it. He didn't want to endure such torture for a minute and would rather die. He could also guess that Nan Yan would definitely not let them go easily. Even, her goal might be to kill them. Since there was no way to escape death, it would be better to die happily and get rid of the torture as soon as possible. It's not that easy to die. Nan Yan saw that the situation was almost over, so she stuffed an antidote into his mouth. As for Li Si, who was fainted by the pain, he did not receive such treatment. Even in a coma, he was still in severe pain, and his body would twitch from time to time. Zhang Shan did not want to eat what Nan Yan gave him. However, the antidote melted in his mouth, and it slid down his throat in less than a second. He wanted to vomit, but he couldn't. With the antidote, within 3 minutes, he felt the pain in his body, like a tide, quickly faded. If it weren't for the miserable memory of the severe pain in his nerves just now, he would even doubt whether the scene just now was real. After the poison passed, he gritted his teeth and twisted his wrist, which was dislocated by Qin Lu's kick, back to its original position. With fear in his eyes, he asked in a low voice, "Who are you? What is your purpose?" Nan Yan had no interest in answering his questions. She kicked the unconscious Li Si and said indifferently, "Your life and his life are now in my hands. If you don't want to endure the pain just now, you'd better cooperate with my request. If you don't agree, I won't kill you, but I will make you live a life worse than death." Nan Yan looked down at him. "I give you a piece of advice, don't ask for trouble. Without my consent, you can't die even if you want to commit suicide." Zhang Shan didn't understand that Nan Yan wanted him to betray the organization and become her way to enter the city of desire. He didn't want to die. If he could live, who would want to die? But living in such pain made him feel that life was worse than death. Nan Yan was the god of death who controlled his life. His life was decided by just a word from her. Zhang Shan smiled bitterly, "When I am no longer useful, you will die. I will not kill you, I will only hand you over to the department that specializes in dealing with people like you." Nan Yan said in a light tone, "If you don't do many illegal and criminal things, you won't die. At most, you will be imprisoned for a few years." Zhang Shan hesitated again and again, and finally the instinct of survival overcame everything. He is just a child from a poor family. He has struggled for more than 20 years to become what he is now. Moreover, although he joined the Black Owl, he did not do many illegal and criminal things. If Nan Yan is willing to let him go and hand him over to the relevant departments, he will not be sentenced to death. He has an old mother who is sick at home, and he still wants to take care of her in her old age. He wants to live. "Okay, I am willing to cooperate. For the hope of living, I believe you," Zhang Shan said with gritted teeth. Nan Yan said indifferently, "I like to cooperate with smart people." Zhang Shan smiled bitterly, "I just want to live." Obedience often gets a glimmer of hope. Nan Yan's words gave Zhang Shan hope. For this hope, he decided to rebel. Hashtag. Li Si couldn't die yet. Zhang Shan told him that he was a relative and had a brother-in-law who was in a high position in the Black Owl. There was no reasonable explanation. If he died, it would cause trouble for them. For this reason, Nan Yan could only spare Li Si's life first. She threatened and intimidated him, frightening him to death. In order to survive, he swore to be obedient. Li Si was afraid of death and cowardly. He did nothing except bullying those peripheral members and bullying those who were not as high-ranking as him. Such a person was easy to control. As long as his life was in her hands, he would not dare to have the courage to retaliate. In this way, Nan Yan spared his life first. The plane landed on the cruise ship where Li Si and Zhang Shan were before, more than 1,000 kilometers away. The pilot had no idea what was happening in the cabin. After seeing Zhang Shan and Li Si being so polite to Nan Yan and Qin Lu, he was a little surprised. What were the identities of these two people? The people on the Zhengta should not be too important, right? But then the pilot saw Nan Yan's beauty clearly, and this explained it. After all, it was no secret that Li Si was lustful. He had been a licker for women before. In this way, even the sailors and guards on the Fiteng were not surprised to see this scene. In a few days, the cruise ships that came from all directions to deliver goods docked here and went to the next stop. Qin Lu and Nan Yan used a few days to completely control their network and quietly began to infiltrate the city of desire. After Fan Heping knew that the two of them had successfully sneaked in, he proposed to send a few people to meet them. But Qin Lu refused all of them. The current situation is not about the number of people. If there are more people, the target will be bigger and easier to expose. Instead, it is better for the two of them to sneak in, which is easier to investigate. Fan Heping was persuaded by Qin Lu and did not mention sending people to meet them. "You two, Be careful. Finding information is important, but your safety is more important, understand? I know. Qin Lu chuckled and looked into the distance leisurely. Captain Fan, don't think of me as too selfless. My life and Yanyan's life are more important than anything else. Whether the mission is completed or not, the first thing he has to ensure is that Yanyan can leave the dangerous area intact. His life does not only belong to him, but so many people's lives are closely related to him. He can't just give up his life. He is willing to pay as much as he can, and is willing to help regardless of cost and reward. Once his life is in danger, he will protect himself and his loved ones at all costs. This is his attitude. Fan Heping didn't think anything was wrong when he heard what he said, and was very relieved. That's right, you two should protect yourselves first, and then do other things. With a sigh, he did not forget to tell, bastard, protect Yanyan. Qin Lu sneered, my woman, do you need to remind me? Fan Heping. Well, he is meddling in other people's business. Fan Heping laughed and scolded him and hung up the phone. As soon as he hung up the phone, Mr. N called in. Before Mr. N could speak, he took the lead and said, Mr. N, I just talked to that stinky boy Qin Lu on the phone. They are safe now, don't worry. No, Mr. N rubbed his eyebrows, Mr. Fan, I called not to worry about Yanyan's safety. Although, he was still worried. However, Nanyan called him every day recently to report her situation, and his worried heart was somewhat relieved. It's like this. I'm annoyed by several deans of Imperial University. They all want to snatch Yanyan, but Yanyan is not here now, and they don't know when she will come back. They keep asking her what she did. The mission she went to perform is quite special. I can't tell the deans of Imperial University, so I hope you can tell them so that they can wait for Yanyan to come back. Grandpa An's tone didn't show much annoyance, but more of a show-off. Yes. He just wanted more people to know how outstanding his precious granddaughter is. She is so outstanding that even the deans of Imperial University are fighting for her. Fan Heping. It hurts.